The story begins 1 month ago with our protagonist Kyu hearing a knock on the door. A delivery had arrived for his father Kyouji. However, when he opened the door, he found himself in another world. Although shocked at first, Kyu assumed he was chosen to be a hero. He looked around for the delivery meant for his father but found a strange-looking bird instead. The bird attacked Kyu but missed. He couldn't believe the bird was trying to kill him. He then realized that in situations like this, he must have some kind of special ability. He tried to open his skills and status window, but nothing happened until the bird crashed into him. In the end, he concluded that he was weak and barely reached the nearby city. He assumed he would see his stats if he joined the guild. A receptionist then welcomed him and asked for 1,000 gold to view his stats. Since he was penniless, he could not see his stats but managed to register with the guild. His next problem was food. Since he looked pitiful, he assumed he could get a free meal as a special start in his isekai life. However, it didn't happen, and Kyu went to an alleyway, nearly starving to death. Just then, he noticed a restaurant employee disposing of some leftover food. Kyu looked tempted but didn't want to end up dumpster diving. In the end, his hunger won, and he enjoyed the leftover food. He threw away his honor but reminded himself not to depend on dumpster diving. He assumed his situation shouldn't be worse compared to his previous world. Suddenly, he chewed on something hard and realized it was a seed. At that moment, he understood he could grow his own food instead of hunting monsters for money to buy it. He decided this would suit his lifestyle better. Kyu then went to a monster-free plain, away from town, where there was an abandoned house. With a little hope in this new world, he decided to start farming. The next morning, Kyu was surprised to see the seeds had already sprouted. He went to the town's fountain to fetch some water. He found the plants in this world amazing and believed he could be self-sufficient in a week. However, he got scolded for taking water from the fountain. He returned to his fields to water the plants. Another morning came and the plants were already surprisingly big. Kyu spent his days stealing water from the fountain, dumpster diving, and taking care of his plants. Soon after, he got excited to see his plants but was almost killed by them. He then realized that his plants were actually monsters. One of his plants swallowed him, but he was soon freed when the plants were sliced into pieces. He cried when he saw his ruined plants, but a girl suddenly called him an idiot. She scolded Kyu for growing a carnivorous plant. The girl grabbed him by the collar and Kyu started complaining, noticing the violent but cute heroine. He claimed he couldn't take his eyes off her, which made the girl flustered. The girl then released Kyu and said her brother, who was a guard, had asked her to do something about the guy who kept stealing water from the fountain. She exclaimed it was dangerous to grow monsters in the town. Kyu apologized, saying he didn't know. The girl said that planting was different from monster cultivation. Kyu said he had mistaken the monster seed for a fruit seed. Confused, the girl asked what a fruit seed was. Her reaction confused Kyu, and he soon realized that the world he was in only had monster seeds. The girl said that was common sense. Kyu had nothing to say. He then noticed his ruined plants and cried out loud. The girl explained that the death of a monster would cause the plant to wither. He wondered how he could grow them properly. The girl confirmed that monsters couldn't be cultivated normally. She further explained that to harvest them, people sent requests to adventurers to harvest the fruit while the monsters were still alive, which made it expensive. Kyu flinched when he heard that they were expensive and asked why. The girl explained that the recent harvests had been quite low. Kyu called her Knight, but the girl formally introduced herself as Lily. He then asked if planting monsters was really that rare. Lily confirmed that they grew naturally and that no one had successfully cultivated them. It was her first time seeing someone do it. Excitedly, Kyu suggested they plant monsters together. He asked her to let him cultivate in the area and promised to give her part of the harvest. Lily was hesitant since it involved growing monsters, but Kyu quickly begged, promising that he would control the plant monsters this time, and asked for financial support for farming tools. Lily agreed that Kyu's actions weren't worth expulsion and decided to show him a place for public water. However, she wanted 50% of the harvest for their cooperation. The two then formally introduced themselves to each other. Soon after, the two went to the forest to hunt some monsters. Kyu was confused about why they were hunting, and Lily soon showed him how they could get seeds from the slain monsters. Lily ripped a seed from a pumpkin-looking part of a monster's carcass and gave it to Kyu. They went back to the fields, and Lily explained that the seed they just got was a jack-o'-lantern, a kind of killer plant. However, it wouldn't attack if they did nothing. As they planted the seed, Lily wondered what kind of magic Kyu had to grow monsters. The next day, the fields already showed plants growing with pumpkins. Lily was impressed as she held one pumpkin and told Kyu to bring some and follow her. They went to town and met up with a girl named Mina. Lily told Mina that Kyu could grow monsters, which was a surprise. Mina asked if they could really be grown. Lily then showed her the pumpkins, and Mina was shocked. Lily whispered to Kyu that Mina's business had been in decline lately and asked him to lend her a hand. As Mina tried to talk about the price, the two hungry farmers exclaimed they should make food out of it first. After leaving Mina's store, Lily thanked Kyu. He didn't mind since Mina's cooking with the jack-o'-lantern killer plant was delicious. With this in mind, Kyu vowed to become the best farmer in another world. Lily was confused by Kyou's words. As the two returned to the fields, a deep male voice suddenly told Kyou that he was late. The voice thanked Kyou for planting him and asked if Kyou wanted to taste him. It was a jack-o'-lantern talking to Kyou. Soon after, Kyou, Lily, and the talking jack-o'-lantern watched some monsters that spewed silk. Lily told Kyou to be quiet and explained that the monsters, Kaikoromochi, were very shy and would immediately run if they saw a person. Kyou complained that he hadn't heard how hard it was to catch them. Lily blamed him for wanting some fabric and running to the Kaikoromoki's nest. Kyou excused himself by saying clothes were expensive, but Lily exclaimed it was time-consuming to catch monsters for making clothes. Kyou then wondered why Jack, the pumpkin monster, was following them. Jack claimed the two were technically his parents and he was obligated to protect them. Kyou grew impatient while waiting until a nearby egg hatched. Kyou was excited to see a newborn Kaikoromochi, but Lily shushed him. Just then, Jack warned them that something was coming. A monster called Hell Eagle appeared to snack on the Kaikoromokis. Surprisingly, the Kaikoromokis were fast in escaping. However, the newborn Kaikoromochi had a hard time escaping. As the Hell Eagle tried to eat it, Kyou jumped and saved the Kaikoromochi. Lily told him to run and Kyou sped up. Lily then distracted the Hell Eagle and slashed the back of its head, making it drop to the ground. She reminded Kyou to at least tell her if he was going to take action. Everyone was surprised to see the newborn Kaikoromochi getting close to Kyou and even spewing out silk. Lily exclaimed that Kaikoromochi wouldn't produce silk if they felt uncomfortable. Jack then mentioned that the Kaikoromochi was just expressing its thanks, and spewing the silk meant it liked Kyou. Lily agreed since Jack, being a monster himself, was guaranteeing it. Kyou then decided to name the Kaikoromochi Mochi and raise it. Of course, he wanted its silk. Lily couldn't understand Kyou at all since he could not only grow monsters but also win their hearts. Kyou then noticed an egg falling from the tree and asked about it. Lily explained that it was born from the tree. Kyou exclaimed that such a thing shouldn't happen. Lily further explained that all monster plants were born from trees. Jack is a monster of the flora, whose fruits will turn into monsters. Meanwhile, fauna monsters have their own trees that bear the fruit, which falls down to hatch a baby monster. Fish, though, come from Caphorbia. Lily also explained that there were monster danger levels, with SS as the strongest and F as the weakest. Kyouji wondered how strong SS-leveled monsters were. Lily then claimed it was impossible for humans to face them since the opponents were heroes. Kyou was surprised and wondered when a hero would emerge. However, Lily didn't know. Kyou then wondered if a monster plant could give birth to a different kind. Lily confirmed that one plant could only give birth to its own kind. Kyouji then noticed a monster egg and claimed that he would raise it since he felt it was destiny. Lily scolded him because they didn't know what kind of monster it was. Kyou ignored her words and Lily gave up in the end but made Kyou fully responsible for it. Back home, everyone was surprised by the bed that Mochi made. Kyou suggested selling Mochi's silk, and Lily agreed so they could buy clothes and other things. Kyou expressed his desire to buy and raise a mandrake. However, Lily didn't recommend it. Kyou assumed it was because of the hellish scream of the monster plant. Lily then claimed that a mandrake's value was 100 times lower compared to Jack. She told him to focus on profiting from Mochi first and fixing the house. Kyou had worked hard on his fields until he got a mandrake seed and planted it. It didn't take long for it to turn into a monster in the form of a cute and weak-looking little girl. She asked not to be eaten. Kyou was shocked because he had expected a disgusting-looking creature to appear. Lily claimed she was the harmless kind, but adventurers would still kill them after pulling them out of the ground. Anxious, Kyou wondered if they could cook the mandrake. Lily said most people would cut off the head since it wasn't delicious. Cooking them was cruel. Seeing the mandrake tremble, Kyou assured her that she wouldn't be killed. The mandrake assumed she would be raised first and then eaten later. Kyou admitted he had thought of that, but after seeing her helplessness, changed his mind. Jack was touched and offered to be eaten instead. The mandrake then knew she would live. Kyou then told her to do whatever she wanted and live with them. Lily just smiled at the heartwarming scene and went to town. She found Kyou a strange guy for raising monster plants. Monster plants were known to be only ingredients and could only live in nature. Businessmen would sell mandrakes since they knew they couldn't be raised, and rare seeds were only collected as hobbies. The hunt for monster plants, especially the rare ones, had recently become excessive, and the people known as the Five Heroes had overhunted many of them. Lily was worried that Kyou would be targeted once the Five Heroes knew about him raising monster plants. Just then, Lily overheard some men talking about someone growing monster plants in the countryside, especially mandrakes. A man had hired them to bring back anything valuable from there. Meanwhile, Kyou named the mandrake Dora and gave her clothes and food. Dora still thought she was being raised to be eaten later. Kyou found her very cute, unlike other dangerous plants. Suddenly, the egg Kyou had picked up moved a bit. Kyou said it was aware it was being raised. The men from before started sneaking up to the house. Jack then warned Kyou about the intruders, but it was too late because the men had already broken in. They confronted Kyou, who was more worried about his broken door. Then they saw Dora and realized she was a valuable first-class monster. They ordered Kyu to hand over Dora and promised to pay for her and the broken door. However, Kyu refused to do so. The men then decided to attack Kyu altogether but failed because the monster egg, Mochi, Jack, and Lily stopped them. Lily was glad that she arrived on time. The men then started attacking Lily one by one but couldn't do anything against her. After dodging their attacks, Lily decided to fight back and easily knocked out the men one by one with her sword. Kyo then thanked Lily and she decided to drag the men back to the headquarters so her brother could punish them. Before she left, Lily told Kyu that she was impressed by his words, and that her opinion of him had changed. It was Kyu's words about not giving Dora to the intruders. She had known Dora since she was a seed and had raised her for a long time. Not only with Dora, but he also had a lot of fun with the others because she had never felt the satisfaction of completing something before in her life. Suddenly, Dora started crying out loud because she thought Kyu would easily hand her over to the men. She decided to serve him as her master with all her heart, and even offered her body to him. Worried, Kyu told her to calm down. Soon after, Kyu sold his produce and buyers found the quality impressive. Lily then warned Kyu about troublesome people noticing his successful business. Kyu told her not to worry too much, but suddenly a huge man asked if he was the one known as Himuro Kyouji because the lord of the town was looking for him. Kyouji then met the lord, who was curious if he was the one raising the monster plants. Kyu assumed that he would get expelled as the lord started talking about the debate among the people about Kyu raising monster plants. Surprisingly, Kyu had supporters because of the benefits he was providing. The lord then asked him for a favor, to raise a cockatrice and let it lay eggs. They had recently captured one but it wouldn't eat and they hoped someone could raise it. Since the number of cockatrices was declining, they needed to make it lay eggs to benefit the town. Of course, the lord offered to pay Kyu upon his success. Kyu then asked what would happen if he refused. Soon after, Kyu and the others met the caged cockatrice. Dora wondered if the monster would really lay eggs, and Kyu said he didn't have a choice since it was a favor from the lord. Kyu then tried feeding the cockatrice different kinds of fruits, but it refused to take a bite. Lily then realized that the cockatrice still had its pride and arrogance, choosing to die rather than be caged by humans. She began to wonder if the lord had tricked Kyu since he had initially agreed to expel Kyu from the town. This method provided a legal basis for kicking out Kyu, and the current situation was set up. Kyu decided to let the monster go and unlock the cage. The cockatrice attacked but barely missed Kyu's groin. It hit the ground instead and was knocked unconscious. Kyu then asked about the danger level of the cockatrice. Lily explained that cockatrices were ranked C, while the killer wolves from before were ranked D. Generally, monsters ranked above C were ones that most adventurers couldn't defeat, especially those ranked above B. Kyu asked for examples, and Lily mentioned dragons and wyverns. Kyu then started petting the poor cockatrice and suddenly realized something. He asked for Lily's help. Soon after, Kyu delivered lots of eggs to the lord. The lord was surprised by the amount and wondered how Kyu had done it. Kyu explained that the main body of the cockatrice was the snake and it had been suffering. The lord was amazed by Kyu's observation and raising skills. He decided to let Kyu stay in his town and continue managing the cockatrice. Kyu looked relieved. The lord reminded Kyu that the people in guild had conflicting opinions about his talent for raising monsters. However, if he continued contributing positively, no one would be against him. Kyu was confused and wondered if he was being given a chance. He didn't really know what the lord was thinking, but he planned to raise something more surprising next time. Later, Kyu received a reward from the lord, which was a precious stone. He assumed he would become rich while having fun raising monsters. As he celebrated with his monsters, Lily came over and was surprised to see the stone. Kyu claimed he would sell it for money. However, Lily disagreed and argued that it should be kept as decoration. They continued arguing until the precious stone slipped from their grasp and broke into pieces. Kyu was in despair. Suddenly, Lily panicked as Kyu ran outside. Kyu then made a grave for the stone since it was useless to sell it for money. The next morning, small sprouts emerged from the ground where the broken pieces of the precious stone were buried. After some time, the sprouts merged into one. Kyu went out to the fields wondering how long the egg would stay an egg. At that moment, they noticed a huge tree on top of the grave Kyu made the previous day. Lily then claimed that it was a wyvern tree. Upon hearing her words, Kyu realized something and dragged Lily deep into the woods. They climbed a nearby mountain to find a monster in the shape of an animal to get a gem. As they searched, a huge bear monster appeared. Lily explained that it was a brown bear king, an evolved form of normal brown bears ranked B. Kyo told Lily to run away, but the female knight dashed toward the monster because Kyu needed the gem. With her trusty sword, Lily aimed a heavy blow, but the bear easily blocked it with its thick furred arms. It countered with its paws and Lily dodged. However, the bear wasn't done and charged with its head. Kyu could only watch as Lily rolled on the ground, injured from the attack. His scream attracted the bear's attention, making Kyu the next target. Just as it seemed Kyou's head was about to be torn off by the bear's fangs, something hit the bear hard, causing it to arch its back all the way to where Lily was. Lily then swung her sword hard and beheaded the bear monster. She went to check on Kyou and apologized for being careless. Kyou claimed it was his fault for forcing her into the woods with him. He thanked the monster egg for saving his life. The next day, Lily wondered if Kyou had confirmed his suspicions. Kyou showed her the tree that had grown where he planted the Brown Bear King's gem. He realized that the gem's inside monsters were seeds. If the monster was a plant type, the seeds were seed-shaped, but for animal-type monsters, the seeds formed as gems. With that discovery, Lily decided to keep it a secret. Kyou asked why. Lily claimed that such a truth would shake the world since no one could raise monsters before. She assumed things would get chaotic if the 6 heroes heard about it. Kyou then wondered who those people were. Lily instructed him to focus on taking care of the wyvern tree. Meanwhile, 6 individuals had a meeting and their agenda was about Kyou. One of them excitedly wanted to meet Kyou, but another reminded him to be serious since the meeting was about the world's future. A woman among them claimed their lord must still be hiding something and suggested reconnaissance first. Someone then suggested making the philosophy hero take the job. A woman known for her bountiful harvest said she would meet Kyou since she was already interested in him. As the woman left, the others talked behind her back, claiming that she had no power but was still on the same rank as them. One then claimed that power was not enough, and since the world was changing, it was more important to have someone who could bring about civilized innovation. The woman they called Powerless had made great achievements in the cuisine of the current generation, which was one reason she needed to be respected among the 6. Still, in the end, they needed to confirm first if Kyou's existence was harmful to them. Meanwhile, an egg started cracking and a wyvern came out of it. Kyou nervously looked at it and welcomed it to the family. The baby wyvern then excitedly leaped into Kyou's arms. Soon after, Mina shyly asked Kyou about something related to her. Kyou assumed it was a proposal. However, Mina was only asking Kyou to join her in a cooking competition. She explained that it was an annual event that decided which restaurant would represent their country in the food festival of another nation. She claimed everyone would acknowledge Kyou if he used the monster plants he used as ingredients. Kyou knew there was a lot of prejudice against him, and he was given a chance by Mina to change his image. Mina further explained that their country highly valued cuisine, and that anyone would always get better recipes using monster plants. Kyou then realized he could change everyone's mind if he could present a taste no one had experienced before. However, he worried that Mina's reputation would suffer if he failed. Mina just smiled and claimed Kyou had already helped her enough. She also wanted other people to see Kyou as a good person. Kyou fell in love and agreed to join the cooking competition. Meanwhile, Lily looked tired as she struggled with hunting monster plants in her role as an adventurer. She mentioned how the higher-ranked adventurers had no problems since they could get difficult missions from the government. An adventurer who achieved a lot was called a warrior, which was every adventurer's goal. However, she didn't want to follow that path because she wanted a peaceful, independent life. Thinking about that, Kyou came to her mind. Just then, she bumped into a beautiful woman who was looking for the Zhonghu restaurant. Lily gave her directions and watched her walk away, feeling that she recognized her. Soon after, Lily found out that Kyou and Mina were competing in a cooking contest. She claimed it would be hard to win since a gourmet noble would come to town. She explained that they were the best chefs in the world. With revolutionary techniques, their descent brought an aristocratic title to their family, and among the family, she had the best cooking skills. Mina wondered if this noble would also participate. Lily then said the gourmet noble would assist the Zhonghu restaurant. Mina recalled how Zhonghu restaurant didn't even consider her a rival. She was now worried that she couldn't win since the gourmet noble was with Zhonghu. A depressing silence enveloped them until Kyou exclaimed that they still had time to find a dish that everyone would acknowledge. However, if the competition started, the time for Kyou to find and raise new plants would be gone. Instead of searching for something else, he planned to focus on raising his plants into higher quality ingredients. Surprisingly, Jack and Dora offered themselves as ingredients for the competition, but Kyou refused. He had cockatrice eggs, which tasted better than Earth's eggs. Some time ago, he had found a seed that turned out to be a cockatrice tree, and now he had a lot of cockatrices. Kyou still had the devil carrots, which had coincidentally appeared, running away from something. Just then, Kyou noticed a random killer plant that had sprouted, scaring off the other monster plants. As he stared at the violent plant monster, he began to think about how they could eat it. The day of the cooking competition had arrived, and the judges included the lord and other culinary specialists from the country. In the crowd, Lily told Kyou that the gourmet noble was nearby. Kyou stared hard at her and the noblewoman noticed him. She then approached him because she knew Kyou was the one raising monster plants. The noblewoman smiled and suggested a little competition. If Kyou won, he could do anything to her. Her offer confused Kyou and made him think impure thoughts. Someone on the sidelines was getting jealous. The noblewoman then walked away with the owner of the Zhonghu restaurant and introduced herself as Fides of the Gourmets. The competition then formally started and different chefs served their own unique dishes. The judges tasted the dishes but kept giving average to low scores. Just then, rare ingredients like the sea monster Kraken were brought in. Fides started preparing the ingredients with grace as if she were performing a concert. After some time of cooking and showmanship, Zhonghu restaurant finished their dishes. All the dishes served looked appetizing, like treasures on display. This shocked Kyu and Mina. The judges tried the dishes and everyone exclaimed together how delicious they were. Everyone except the Lord gave perfect scores. The crowd cheered as last year's champion, Zhonghu Restaurant, was leading with 9.8 points, tied with the representative of the Gourmet family. Just then, the host announced that a restaurant participating for the first time would be cooking next. Mina was introduced as the owner of a modest restaurant. Kyu was introduced as Mina's helper and the person known for raising monster plants. Some people in the crowd got scared by Kyu's profession, but others praised how delicious Kyu's ingredients were. Someone even said Kyu's monster plants had never attacked anyone before. Kyu and Mina then brought their dishes to the judges. They served simple-looking dishes made with ingredients from a jack-o'-lantern, mandrake, cockatrice, and a sauce made from a killer tree. Kyu was grateful for Jack and Dora's help. The judges took a bite of the dishes and everyone surprisingly went silent. The crowd, along with Lily, Mina, and Kyu, were all nervous. The Lord started trembling in his seat. Was he disappointed or something? Kyu and the girls realized they had lost while Fides smiled, knowing they had won. Suddenly all the judges raised their scores and everyone was shocked to see that they were all perfect 10s. The host tried to announce the winner, but Fides suddenly intervened. She exclaimed she couldn't lose since she had prepared entirely first-class ingredients. Kyu kind of agreed since he had seen Fides's ingredients and skills as a cook. Just then, the city lord told Fides to eat Kyu's dishes. She took a bite and was shocked. She lifted the bowl and licked the plate clean. She then started blushing and lashed out at Kyu for using a killer plant for the sauce. Kyu then said it would be easier to show them. He removed the cloth from something Lily brought over. Everyone was shocked to see a killer tree. Fides asked why it was not attacking. Kyu explained that it was raised in a remote area without grass. Fides exclaimed that it would be impossible to do. Kyu then explained that there was something called the diet farming method. Any plants raised that way would lose their natural instincts and become extremely delicious. He further explained that in the first place, killer plants or trees attack humans and animals because they have so much energy. If raised through the diet farming method, they wouldn't attack humans and would focus on bearing more fruits. Kyu then plucked off a fruit and claimed that it could be eaten directly. Fides took a bite of the fruit and admitted her loss. The host then announced that Mina and Kyu had won the competition and would represent their country in the food festival of the continent of Markt. Mina jumped into Kyu's arms, crying with joy. Everyone in the crowd expressed their interest in trying out Kyu's ingredients and Mina's cooking. For some reason, this manga had suddenly turned into a cooking genre. Soon after, Fides was seen stalking Kyu, smiling and blushing. Kyu was glad that Lily had helped him. Lily was fine with it since having more customers was a good thing. It was all thanks to the competition. Just then, they heard Jack shouting. They quickly went back to the house and a cute little girl ran toward Kyu. The little girl hugged Kyu lovingly, as if she had just seen her father. Kyu asked Jack who the child was. Jack claimed the girl had been with them the whole time. The little girl had hatched from the egg. Kyu was surprised because he didn't expect a cute little girl to come out of the egg. He then wondered what kind of monster or monster plant the girl was. Lily noticed that the girl still couldn't talk. They wondered what to name her. Since she kept saying Sui the whole time, they decided to name her Sui. Sui looked happy to have a name. Lily said it was her first time seeing a monster come out of an egg with a human body. Suddenly, the front door opened and a person with a huge luggage came in. The person was impressed to see that Kyu was really raising a lot of monster plants. Kyu was surprised to see Fides. Blushing, Fides asked Kyu to call her casually. When she first heard about the diet forming method, she said it was the first time she felt something impressive. Kyu then asked why Fides had come over. Fides reminded Kyu about their bet and said she was Kyu's from now on. She hoped to live with him to learn more about raising monster plants. Dora and Lily looked panicked to see a new woman in Kyu's life. Fides even tried to offer something naughty, but Kyu just told her to go back home. Just then, Fides mentioned that she was ordered to get close to Kyu. Her words alerted Lily. She assumed that Fides was related to the heroes. She tried to talk to Fides, but she was ignored. Fides exclaimed she didn't care about the orders anymore since she had already devoted herself to serving Kyu. Lily tried to get her to answer her question, but Fides was hugging Kyu tightly. Sui then joined the hugging session and her headbutt knocked Kyu out. Dora silently watched everyone cause a ruckus with Kyu. For the first time, Dora shouted like the mandrake she was and told them to get off Kyu. Dora loved taking naps when it was warm and often slept next to her master. However, ever since Fides arrived, her spot was taken. For some unknown reason, this annoyed her. Besides Fides, she had another enemy, Sui. Sui stayed close to Kyu, and Kyu really cared about Sui. Even though she was of a higher class, Dora was born first, and the spot next to her master should have been hers, as the older sister. She knew her master didn't understand these things and could see how oblivious Kyu was. Seeing Dora frustrated, Kyu asked if something was wrong. Dora didn't say anything and ignored Kyu. She walked away and cried silently. Jack noticed her. She used to climb onto Kyu's shoulder and head, but now the head was occupied by Wyvern, Mochi was on the legs, and Jack was the closest to Kyu. She could also see how close Kyu was with Lily. It was a different relationship compared to them. As with Lily, Kyu had an intimate human-to-human connection. While lost in her thoughts, Dora tripped over a rock. She got back up and continued crying. She looked back at the house and concluded that she was no longer needed by Kyu. She stayed away from Kyu and let herself get drenched in the rain. Soon after, Dora was surprised to see Jack. He told her that everyone would be worried if she went far away. He asked what was wrong. Dora then said she felt annoyed whenever she saw any girls get close to Kyu, and she didn't like the feeling at all. Jack then confirmed that Dora liked Kyu and everyone around them felt the same. However, Jack said his feelings were the feelings of the opposite gender. Wait, Jack was a she? Even Dora was confused. Jack then explained that was why Dora didn't like other women getting closer to Kyu. Dora became sadder as she knew that she was just a mandrake. Jack told her not to give up her emotions just because she was different. Instead of thinking about reasons she didn't like, Jack suggested thinking about the reasons why she liked Kyu. After hearing Jack's words, Dora remembered the peaceful times she had with Kyu and why she was attracted to him. Her love had crossed the lines of species. She hadn't realized she liked Kyu that much. She really liked her master as a man. She then fell silent until she thanked Jack for making her realize her feelings. Suddenly, a creepy-looking monster appeared nearby, confusing the two monster plants. The monster began calling for Dora, recognizing her as a mandrake. Using its magic, it trapped Dora in a balloon and seized her. Jack attempted to fight back and rescue Dora, but he was easily knocked away and tumbled across the ground until he lost consciousness. Dora attempted to wake Jack with her screams, but the creepy monster silenced her and tried to cover her up. She cried out for help, but no sound came from her mouth. As she slipped into unconsciousness, her thoughts were only of Kyu. Meanwhile, Kyu had decided to search for Dora because she had been missing for quite a while. Fetus had assumed Dora would return on her own. Kyu insisted that Dora was his family. Just then, Lily arrived and offered to help search for Dora because she was also worried. They soon found Jack looking pale in the nearby woods. Jack said Dora had been taken by a witch dressed in white robes. Lily then guessed it was the Snow Witch. When Kyu asked about the witch, Lily explained there was a witch who lived on the nearby snowy mountain. An army had once tried to defeat her, but they had all turned into ice statues. Kyu then asked why Dora had been kidnapped. Lily hesitated for a moment, looking anxious. She said witches were humans, but they were also enemies of humans because they were connected to the deceased Demon King. Kyu was shocked by this revelation. Lily then asked if Kyu still planned to rescue Dora despite what she had just told him. Kyu affirmed that he would go. Lily looked worried. They then decided to rescue Dora. Meanwhile, in a castle atop a snowy mountain, a woman was catching her breath. It was the Snow Witch, and she was holding Dora. She seemed to be in pain. She remembered someone calling her ISU and explained that not all monsters were evil. They were important beings in the world. Thanks to them, humans could live, and they were not simply friends or foes. Those who lived alongside monsters were called witches. Isu's brother had been a wise and skilled witch. He had been very excited and had started researching monsters. ISU herself had been weak, but she could understand the thoughts of monsters. Thanks to that ability, she had been able to become a bridge between the two species. One day, her brother had found a dryad. The poor creature's blue hair could be made into various medicines, and she had been hunted by adventurers. They had helped her heal and started calling her Dory. ISU was usually bad at talking with people, but with Dory, she had forgotten her social anxiety. She didn't need any friends aside from her. However, that happiness hadn't lasted, as all monsters had come to be seen as evil beings by the so-called allies of justice. To them, witches who lived with monsters were also deemed evil. Though they were called witches, they didn't have the power to resist. Isu's parents and brother had sacrificed their lives to allow her and Dory to escape. The two had ended up fleeing deep into the snowy mountains. Not long after, Dory's health had worsened. She had been Isu's closest friend, and ISU had wanted to do something for her. Just then, she had discovered a mandrake in the woods, a higher class type that could save Dory. As ISU had entered the room, Dory had been in disbelief, seeing ISU holding a poor little girl. She had asked ISU not to harm Dora and had claimed she wouldn't be saved regardless. Then she had apologized to Dora. Dora became calmer and suggested that her master had the ability to raise monsters, which might help save Dory. ISU didn't believe her at first. However, when they looked into their magic ball and saw Kyu and the others crossing snowy mountains, ISU realized that the mandrake she had caught had friends like Dory. She was prepared to accept that she might not be forgiven for causing trouble. When Kyu and the others reached them, they were greeted by a guilty and tearful Isu. Kyu was confused by the situation. Dora then leaped into Kyu's arms. As they celebrated their reunion, Isu started acting embarrassed. Dora looked at her with pity and asked Kyu if he could save the dying dryad. Kyu was surprised to encounter a new species of monster. Dori noticed them and apologized for Isu's actions. Kyu reassured her that he didn't mind if Dora forgave them. He could see that necrosis was already affecting Dori's body. Kyu explained to Isu that the cold climate had worsened Dori's condition and suggested it might be too late. Isu began crying, not wanting to live without Dori by her side. Dori assured her that she would be okay. Kyu confirmed with Lily that dryads were a type of plant-based monster. Lily explained that Dori could grow a new sprout after dying, but she might become a different person. Suddenly, Isu panicked as Dori became unresponsive and fell into a vegetative state. Kyu and the others could only watch the painful scene in silence. That's how Dori took her last breath. However, a few days later, Kyu succeeded in growing a part of Dori. It didn't require a seed, just a stem was enough. The baby dryad woke up and found Isu staring at her. She paused for a moment with wide eyes, then sweetly called out Isu's name. Tears welled up in Isu's eyes. Dora also started crying and Kyu comforted her flower. Isu stood up and tearfully thanked Kyu. Kyu thought she looked adorable. Suddenly, the touching moment was interrupted by Lily, who said she had a question. She asked Isu if she knew about the sealed witch and if she had ever attacked humans before. Isu exclaimed that she would never do such a thing. Despite her doubts, Lily said she believed her. Kyu then asked what was wrong with the witch Lily mentioned. Lily explained that the witches had taken something important from her. Kyu watched Lily leave in silence, wondering what she had lost to the witches before. He noticed Isu seemed upset, so Kyu reassured her that Lily wasn't a bad person. He believed Lily would come to understand Isu eventually. Still, he was concerned because it was the first time he had seen Lily act that way. Isu wondered if she could be friends with Lily someday. Kyu suggested they become friends first. As they shook hands, the other plant monsters joined in. Jack asked if she could join them too. Seeing Jack, Isu panicked and remembered attacking her before. She apologized for harming her. Isu feared Jack was still angry with her. In the end, Jack forgave her, understanding Isu had only been trying to save her friend Dori. Jack hoped they could be friends too. Another peaceful day arrived and Sui had used Jack as her horse. Kyu and Dora noticed them and urged Sui to stop because it was dangerous. Sui then switched to Isu and enjoyed the melons she had. Kyu apologized for the trouble and came over just to check on Dora. Isu was fine with it and asked if Sui was also a monster plant. Fetus was surprised that Sui was one. Lily then approached and asked what they were doing. As usual, Lily and Isu felt awkward around each other. Kyu then informed Lily about the topic concerning Sui, and Lily confirmed that Sui was the egg they both found in the woods. They shared that it had been half a year since they found her, and she had just hatched. The others found it unbelievable and amazing. However, Isu recalled that monster plants could take on human form. Just as Isu was about to explain further, Sui interrupted by jumping into Kyu. She then cutely presented some butterflies she had caught. Lily identified them as butterfly flowers. When these plants bloom, they transform into butterfly-like creatures and are considered rare, known as lucky plants. Sui then gave one to Kyu and one to Lily. Lily explained that by tapping the butterfly, it would hover to wherever she wanted and follow commands. Lily thanked Sui for the surprise gift and promised to treasure it. Kyu was taken aback as he felt like he was falling in love with Lily again. Suddenly, loud noises echoed outside the house. Kyu wondered if it was those phony adventurers again, possibly targeting Sui. He urged everyone to come indoors and grabbed a hoe as a makeshift weapon for defense. However, when he opened the door, instead of troublemakers, confetti burst forth and revealed a cute girl named Mokoshi. She declared herself as the goddess of their world and confirmed that Kyu was expected, claiming she had been observing him all along. This left Kyu bewildered. Mokoshi introduced herself again, and Kyu couldn't help but wonder if she might have some sort of mental disorder. Offended by his thoughts, Mokoshi scolded him for being rude. Meanwhile, Lily trembled as she tried to confirm if the girl before them was indeed their goddess. Mokoshi proudly affirmed her identity but insisted that her appearance shouldn't be seen as a religious event. She then turned serious, requesting Kyu to listen to her as she planned to reveal Sui's true identity. Kyu had no choice but to suppress his doubts. He inquired if it was alright to bring Lily and Fetus along. Mokoshi readily agreed and tapped Kyu on the shoulder. Soon after, they all teleported to another location. Lily was visibly taken aback when she saw something unexpected before her. Mokoshi confirmed that the enormous tree in front of them was the World Tree. She explained that no ordinary humans had ever set foot in this area before. Additionally, she pointed out that the World Tree was commonly referred to as the Tree of Life. According to the story, after consuming the fruit of wisdom to gain knowledge of the universe, Adam and Eve also shared the fruit of immortality. which elevated them to the status of gods. However, they were despised and subsequently expelled by the other gods. The world tree they now stood before was said to originate from the tail of the Garden of Eden, and was born from one of the Sephirot. Makoshi then mentioned that people from another world might have different knowledge and lore about the world tree compared to Earth. In their world, there used to be 10 continents, each with its own tree of life. Sadly, 6 of these trees had perished, leaving only 4 remaining. She asked Kyu to help in rejuvenating these trees of life. Kyu was left puzzled, wondering why only 4 trees were left. Lily then explained that humans had cut down the others, which surprised Kyu. Fidus added that these trees were no longer called trees of life. They were now known as demonic trees. Kyu found this confusing, as it was the complete opposite of what he understood the Tree of Life's name to imply. Makoshi had been explaining that every monster plant was born and grown from a seed. She mentioned that those seeds all came from the Tree of Life. As the seeds grew, they gave rise to many kinds of monsters. Lily then explained that for humans, a tree that produces monsters could itself be considered a monster. Fetus claimed that this was why humans had been cutting them down. With tears streaming down her face, Makoshi called humans terrible. Monsters were a natural part of the world, but humans only saw them as hunting trophies. She simply wanted them to coexist and live in peace. She lamented how a century ago, humans had discovered the origin of the monster plants and had since hunted the so-called demonic trees. Kyu understood that humans would be vulnerable if the monsters were wiped out. However, Makoshi explained that there was a group of monster slayers who tipped the scales that had once been balanced. Lily claimed these people were known as the Mighty Six, the heroes who managed to cut down the demonic trees. According to Fetus, those who accomplished such feats somehow gained the power to influence the world. Kyu complained that he couldn't grow something like a tree of life and felt he needed to be a god to do it. Makoshi then informed him that Kyu possessed the breath of life. Kyu then understood that his farming progress was all thanks to that skill. He fully realized that his reincarnation had given him a cheat-like ability. Makoshi mentioned that raising monsters was similar to nurturing life. Lily recognized that Kyu had the power of a god. Makoshi reminded him that no one had ever questioned her ways, and Kyu now knew that Makoshi had been intervening somehow. Makoshi then asked Kyu to find a core to grow a new tree of life. She showed him a hologram of what the core looked like, and claimed he could find one in the heart of a tree. Ever since the trees had been cut down, humans had stolen the cores. Kyu realized that the cores were in the possession of the 6 heroes. He started sweating, knowing his opponents were capable of cutting down a tree of life and slaying high-ranked monsters. He couldn't casually ask for the cores from them. He felt cornered and might politely refuse Makoshi's request. Just then, Makoshi dropped a heavy piece of news. She claimed the world would end if the remaining 4 trees of life were cut down. Kyu realized that the goddess was indirectly telling him that he would share the same fate. Hearing Kyu's thoughts, Makoshi agreed with everything he had thought of so far. Kyu had found the whole situation ridiculous, and had suggested that Makoshi should just tell everyone, especially the 6 heroes, directly about the situation. Makoshi claimed she could only watch over, and had no rights to interfere in human affairs. Kyu knew that humans had the right to decide their own fate and couldn't blame the gods for their choices. Kyu then asked why she was asking him for the favor. Makoshi confessed that she had grown fond of the world already after observing it for a long time. Kyu then recalled everything close to him in this world: Dora, Jack, Fetus, ISU, Lily, Sui, and every other monster plant he had. Makoshi confessed she couldn't remain silent any longer and had come looking for Kyu's help. After some silence, Kyu agreed to collect the cores and regrow the trees of life. He claimed he had already been given a chance at a new life and wouldn't waste it. Makoshi thanked him in advance. Soon after, ISU and the monster plants who were chilling back home were suddenly surprised by the return of Kyu and the others. Makoshi then decided to tell them about Sui's identity. It turned out she was the child of the Demon King. Everyone silently stared at the confused Sui until the silence was broken by Kyu's loud scream of shock. Another peaceful day had come, and the monster plants were planning something with Sui. Jack was glad that Sui had managed to get out. They were planning to do something for their master, who was currently busy preparing for the cooking competition. Back in the house, Fetus was teaching Kyu about how different the nobles' meals were compared to their daily meals, especially the sauce. As she continued explaining, Fetus noticed Kyu writing down a recipe and wondered if he was drawing a monster plant. Kyu then explained that a patty rice monster had edible seeds in its hair, but they couldn't be used for the competition. However, as a Japanese person, he wanted to make some onigiri, and Fetus became interested in how to cook it. Just then, Mina came running in with an invitation letter. Kyu was surprised at how fast it had arrived. Mina then read the contents of the letter. If they became champions, Mina's restaurant would be promoted to 7-star status, and the grand prize was a gem from a world tree. Both Kyu and Fetus were shocked since it was not something that would randomly appear as a prize. Mina then explained that the previous year's champion, the heroic sage Kasarina, had offered it as the grand prize. Fetus was shocked. She then explained that Kasarina was a legend in the cooking industry and had single-handedly advanced the field by 100 years. Also, as the previous champion, Kasarina had the right to choose the theme, and she chose seafood. Kyu was shocked because he had never handled seafood before. Mina then claimed that the monster plant she was using was the S-ranked monster plant, Leviathan. Titus was shocked because it was considered a 5-star rarity. Mina found Kasarina amazing. Fetus then wondered why her master was going so far. Kyu then realized from her words that Fetus's master was Kasarina. Fetus confessed that Kasarina was her cooking master and that she had been an apprentice for a long time. She also admitted that it was Kasarina who ordered her to get close to Kyu. She claimed it was the original plan, but now she was with Kyu because she truly admired his ability. She apologized for lying the whole time. Kyu said he understood since he had been doubting her. However, seafood was the only thing that Kyu hadn't grown yet, and he assumed that Kasarina knew his weakness too well. Fetus claimed her master deserved the title of a heroic sage. Besides her combat skills, she also had wisdom and cooking ability. She assumed that her master chose her theme based on the results of the last contest. To ease the mood, Sui came over with a fruit. She gave it to Kyu, who started recalling the sauce he had made with the killer plant's fruits. Based on how Fetus had licked the plate clean, he guessed that this world had only been using salt and pepper, and his sauce was considered a breakthrough. Knowing that, he assumed he would win if he created another sauce. Just then, Kyu had a realization. He planned to use the jewel beans to compete and make use of the plant beasts he had been growing. He then went silent, and the girls grew worried. Kyu knew that Kasarina would use an S-ranked monster plant, and even if he came up with some new technique, the gap would still be great. He needed an ingredient on the same level as hers. He then claimed that he didn't have enough and asked for some space. Kyu then went outside, sighing. Jack wondered if she could help cheer him up. Kyu was surprised to see his monster plants had prepared a hot tub. Everyone got into the water and enjoyed the bath. Dora showed that they had used firestones to heat the water, and some hot spring pebbles to help Kyu recover faster. Kyu thanked them and stared at his bruised hand. Sui then asked what was wrong. Kyu said he was tired because of the preparation for the contest. Kyu then remembered when Mokusahi told them about Sui's real identity. She explained that the Demon King was someone who ruled over the monster plants and plant beasts. He was basically the guardian of the world trees and was considered the rightful protector of the world. However, he was killed by the 6 heroes several years ago. He was also Sui's father. In his dying breath, he managed to encase Sui in a protective shell and sent her far away to a safe place. The eggshell was actually a magical barrier to protect Sui. The Demon King was different from other plant beasts who usually left their own kids with someone else. Kyu wondered how he had been able to raise Sui. Mokoshi explained that it was all thanks to his ability, Breath of Life, and that the eggshell was something that couldn't break easily. However, Sui broke the eggshell on her own because she thought of Kyu as her father. Kyu felt a bit embarrassed about being a father, but he considered himself Sui's foster father since Sui seemed happy. Lily also appeared happy for them. Mokoshi then reminded them about the remaining 4 trees of life and suggested that the world would meet its end soon. The Demon King existed to protect the trees, and if the world trees were gone, there would be no place for the Demon King in the world anymore. Kyu then realized that if he couldn't retrieve the jewels of the world trees, Sui would also die. Soon after, the cooking contest looked busy with a lot of staff members and crates. Everyone was impressed with the number of crates and assumed that the contest would be a huge event. Some staff members were curious and checked some rare ingredients. An acting leader warned them not to touch the ingredients, since the preservation spells might lose effect. He sighed and reminded them that the Grand Carnival would begin in less than a month. Meanwhile, Kyu looked worried and wondered what he could do. He had an idea to fight Kasarina but lacked a necessary ingredient. Then Lily came over and pointed out that Kyu was not acting like his usual self. Kyu was surprised to see her. Lily had heard from Mina that he was tormenting himself over the dish. She knew Kyu had come up with an idea but had given up on it. Kyu felt embarrassed about being found out, but Lily pointed out that it was obvious from his face alone. Lily ordered him to tell her what ingredient he needed, but Kyu didn't want to risk Lily for it. He didn't even know if it would be a dangerous quest or not. Lily then grabbed him by the collar and made it clear not to underestimate her. She reminded him that they were a team, and teammates who trust each other should always watch each other's back. She said it was not Kyu's personal problem since she was also there when the goddess spoke, and she also wanted to save Sui. She exclaimed that they shared the same bond and asked Kyu to trust her. Kyu agreed to get her help, but he also wanted to go. Fetus came over with the other plant monsters, but Kyu told her that it was not her job to help. Fetus then told Kyu that because her master won last year, there would be more powerful opponents this time, and it wouldn't be as easy as last year. She suggested that Kyu and Mina should focus on cooking. Lily agreed with Fetus and reminded Kyu that he was not alone in the fight. Seeing everyone cheering him up, Kyu felt glad. He realized that he was not alone. Kyu then asked Lily, Jack, and Wyvern for a favor. He asked them to subdue the S-ranked plant beast Leviathan for him. Lily and Jack told him to leave it to them. Kyu watched the two leave and asked the rest to cheer for him since their support gave him more than just motivation. His only goal in the contest was to win the championship. After Lily went to subdue Leviathan, Kyu focused on improving his cooking every day under the guidance of Mina and Fetus. He was worried, but everyone was helping him get ready for the carnival until the day they left for Marked. They rode a huge steamboat powered by Monster Plant's gems. Dora told him that Lily and the others would be fine. Kyu claimed he was worried but had already sent out reinforcements to help them. Soon after, the boat arrived in Marked. Kyu struggled because of the crowd but soon saw how large the site for the cooking contest was. He and the others felt nervous seeing how huge and grand the place was. It didn't take long for the event to start, and the host welcomed all participants and spectators. The dishes served in the event would be published in cookbooks and become world-famous recipes. Kyu looked scared in front of his opponents, who seemed like cooking heavyweights. They were chefs chosen from all over the world to compete. All the plant beasts and monster plants were thoroughly inspected. The board of judges consisted of food scientists and famous chefs from other countries. These bigwigs of the gourmet world would be their judges. The gem from a world tree was then presented as the grand prize, and Kyu was shocked to see it for the first time. After the judges, the host introduced the previous champion who was sitting on a throne. She was the heroic sage, Kasarina. She would face whoever reached the final round. Without further delay, the first match began between Rudd Restaurant, known for hunting plant beasts, and Mina Restaurant, a newcomer that pleased the hearts and bellies of people. They had only an hour to cook, and the host formally announced the start. Team Rudd then started by lifting firewood and lighting a bonfire in the middle of the stage. They pushed a huge piece of meat onto a large pole and rotated it easily to roast. Seeing them use their muscles, the host asked if it was their special cooking technique. The leader replied that it was not done yet. They needed to extract the leftover oil and find the firestone among the firewood. Meanwhile, the host noticed Team Mina skillfully mincing meat and monster plants. The two then mixed the minced meat and greens together. The host assumed they were making meatballs, but Kyu explained they were making hamburgers. On the other hand, Mina focused on making a salad. The host wondered how the dish would turn out since the vegetables were cut in a strange way. Suddenly, the host freaked out upon seeing a huge pile of meat moving on its own. Surprisingly, one of the members of Team Rudd easily lifted it up. The leader then held two small spoons and started swinging them in front of the meat. Slices of meat then started flying like fluttering flower petals. He then formed the meat slices and cracked an egg in the middle. Their table suddenly turned into a flower garden. It was a unique cooking style presented by Team Rudd, and everyone cheered. Meanwhile, a loud cracking sound surprised Kyu. It turned out to be Mina single-handedly cracking a huge egg. Kyu found it amazing, and Mina acted embarrassed. There were 10 minutes left, and Kyu and Mina focused on finishing their dish. Team Rudd had just finished roasting their meat and sliced it into huge pieces on a sizzling plate. The alarm rang, and the host announced the start of judging. Team Rudd presented their dishes first. Grizzly bear steak together with raw fish salad. The judges received the plates and then started eating in silence. The elder expressed his amazement at how the steak was roasted. He was also impressed with the salad, which didn't have a fishy smell. Mina's team then came up next and the dish was presented. Kyu taught the judges how to eat it, and they all found the fish unexpected. The dish was composed of a hamburger made from grizzly bear, cockatrice, and killer wolf meat. The salad featured cockatrice's egg dipped in mayonnaise sauce. A judge started eating and noticed the different flavors of the meat and the mayonnaise. After the judging, the host announced that Mina's restaurant had won the first round. Everyone cheered for them while Kyu felt overwhelmed, realizing there were 3 more rounds before the finals. Despite his shock, he knew he couldn't afford to lose for Sui's sake. The second day arrived with only half of the original participants remaining. Mina's team faced off against Ristorante Rion in the second round. In a surprising turn, Kyu noticed a man with a baby on his shoulder among the opposing team. The old man revealed that the baby was actually the owner and they were ready to compete. The cook-off began and both teams got busy. Throughout the competition, Kyu kept reminding himself to give his best and hoped Lily was doing the same. Meanwhile, in a distant continent named Kokuma, Lily battled the S-ranked monster Leviathan. She acknowledged its formidable strength as it gathered pressurized water in its mouth. Lily regretted not being able to bring back the Leviathan, apologizing silently to Kyu. Back at the cooking contest, the two teams continued preparing their dishes, and everyone was excited to see who would proceed to the next round. Mina and Kyu were doing their best. The baby owner was also preparing something shaped like blocks. The host then wondered if they were really just using monster plants. The baby then spoke, claiming that monster plants were only known as side dishes. However, he exclaimed that they were also a gallery of flavors and he wanted to prove it on the big stage. Just then, the host noticed his special gloves. The baby got excited and started explaining the use of the gloves for handling heat-sensitive monster plants. After that very long scientific explanation, the host hoped it would taste good. The host then went to Mina's team and asked Kyu what he was doing. Kyu showed himself making red bean dumplings. He demonstrated how it was done, and the host was impressed seeing Dango's. As she announced that only half of the time had passed, Team Ryan announced that they were done. Kyu and the host were confused. The elder judge then gave the nod. Team Ryan then presented their dishes first. Monster plants cut into cubes and shaped into a castle, and a colorful monster plant cake. The judges then started tasting and found out that each cube had its own unique taste. Ryan looked proud because he had worked hard on it. They found the taste amazing, knowing that the dishes were composed only of monster plants. Even the elder judge was impressed. Ryan laughed and told Kyu to do their best, even though the results were already known. Just then, Team Mina finished their dish. Steamed manjus with various flavorings added to the dough and a plain-looking soup as a side dish. Despite the food being hot, the judges excitedly bit into the manjus and enjoyed the soup. Everyone looked pleased and comfortable. They found the filling and flavor combination amazing. They enjoyed the various flavors and the warm food, which was perfect for the cold climate of the continent. The second round then ended with Team Mina's victory. Ryan was shocked and exclaimed that he should not have lost. The elder judge agreed that Ryan's food was amazing. However, they felt cold after eating all of Ryan's desserts. Kyu's manjus then came in and warmed up their bodies. That was the reason for them winning the round. Ryan then started crying since he hadn't gotten any hot ingredients. Meanwhile, Kyu couldn't celebrate as he kept thinking about Lily. He wondered if something went wrong but kept reminding himself not to think about the worst-case scenario. She had promised to come back, and he should have faith in her. Back in Kokuma, Lily tried to run away from the Leviathan's attack. However, the monster got distracted, giving Wyvern a chance to scratch its eye. The monster roared in pain, and Lily moved to its blind spot. The Leviathan's body slammed into the water but immediately got back up and counterattacked. Its water breath hit Lily. Wyvern tried to attack but was swatted away like a fly. Jack tried to wake up Lily, but it was too late as the Leviathan loomed behind them. Jack knew it was over for them. Back in Kyu, he suddenly felt his chest tighten. Mina wondered what was wrong, but Kyu claimed he was fine. It was the start of the semi-final round. Team Mina would go against the most famous restaurant on the continent, Carl Restaurant. Kyu was surprised by the flower petals fluttering around the pretty boy Carl. The round then began, and Carl brought over a hell eagle. However, it was white. Carl explained that it was the type that only ate monster plants, and its flesh was both tender and sweet. On top of that, it was freshly caught. Seeing a rare ingredient, the host wondered how it tasted. She wondered what Team Mina would do to win against it. She then noticed Kyu's ingredient and asked what kind of rare meat it was. Kyu claimed it was only ordinary cockatrice meat. She then asked Mina what kind of rare egg she was holding, and Mina claimed it was just a normal cockatrice egg. The host was flustered at first, then exclaimed how Team Mina only used ordinary ingredients as expected. Just then, Carl disagreed and claimed that in cooking, it was about pouring your love into the food. He said that gazing, sniffing, listening, and focusing your desires into the food would make the ingredients respond to your call. Kyu got angry at the pretty boy and swore to defeat him. The battle between ordinary and extraordinary ingredients continued. Both teams remained calm while making their dishes. No one spoke, and the sounds of the food cooking and the smells coming from it made the spectators drool. Time was up, and Carl presented his dish first, the white hell eagle pole. The judges praised Carl's use of herbs and how he made the meat crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. The elders were surprised at how tactfully the meat was processed, and the herbs enhanced the flavor further. Next, Team Mina and Kyu stepped forward, claiming that their dish was from Kyu's hometown. It was an oyakodon, white rice with cockatrice egg and meat on top. It was a very simple-looking dish. The judges picked up the meat and were shocked after one bite. They angrily asked if it was really cockatrice meat. Kyo confirmed it, saying that he had raised the monster himself. Everyone was surprised by his statement, except for Kasarina, who already knew about it. Kyu then explained how he had learned to ease the monster's stress and observe their eating habits. In this way, their meat and eggs became delicious. The elder was impressed and couldn't believe that cockatrice eggs and meat could be considered a delicacy. He then announced that Team Mina would be the winner for this round. The host excitedly announced that the two would move to the finals. Carl then approached Kyu and wished him luck in the finals. Just then, a voice filled with authority claimed she had been waiting for Kyu. Kyu looked to the nearby throne and saw Kasarina staring hard at him. She showed the gem, knowing that Kyu was looking for it. The host formally announced the start of the finals and wondered if the first-time participants could handle the current champion. And one of the heroes, Kasarina. Kasarina claimed she had been waiting for Kyu. She brought out her blade and asked him to show off his abilities. She then revealed her custom-designed cooking set, which was enormous. just like her melons. An impressive amount of ingredients also appeared, and she would need a lot of assistance to handle them. Mina claimed that Kasarina had superior cooking skills compared to others and might work alone. The host then announced the start of the final round, and Kasarina's staff members cut the catapult's rope. Kasarina and her ingredients flew up into the sky. She started swinging her blade, and as the ingredients were prepared, she kept slicing them at high speed. Everyone at the cooking site was speechless. Kasarina was performing a solo show with her ingredients as props. Her hands moved so fast that everyone could see after images. Kyu saw the Thousand Arms Buddha in her movements. The chopped ingredients magically went into the pots and onto the plates. With the drop of the Leviathan's head, the dishes were set to cook. Kasarina flew down, and with a single swing of her sword, she created fire and lit it under the huge pots. Dragon-like flames appeared on the stage, and everyone was excited to see a dance-like cooking show. The host then checked on Team Mina, and everything looked normal. There were no ingredients, and Kyu was only boiling water. Kasarina wondered why Kyu wasn't using the monsters he proudly raised. Kyu explained that 1 month wasn't enough time to raise monsters for seafood cuisine. Kasarina felt disappointed that the bait brought over a small fry. Seeing Kyu confused, Kasarina clarified that he had used the World Tree Gem as bait. She had hoped for a monster rancher who could show something surprising. The two fell silent and just stared at each other for a while. Kyu then claimed he would win the match and take the championship title and gem. Kasarina seemed pleased and hoped to be entertained. The championship match didn't require showy cooking skills or special abilities, but focused on the flavor and freshness of the ingredients. Meanwhile, back in Kokuma, a familiar witch saved Lily from death. ISU claimed she came to help since Kyu asked her. Lily got back up and found the Leviathan frozen like a popsicle. She then checked on the others and was relieved that Wyvern only lost consciousness. However, Jack didn't survive, as ISU showed a piece of pumpkin. Suddenly, the ice around the Leviathan started cracking. Lily then asked ISU for a favor. After a short discussion, the two continued to subdue the Leviathan. Meanwhile, Kasarina served her dishes, which included King Kraken tempura, golden roasted serpent star, color fish braised in wine, and boiled Leviathan. The judges thought the dishes looked fantastic, and then began to taste Kasarina's cooking. They started praising how well the hard-to-catch color fish was cooked. One judge exclaimed that the serpent star was roasted perfectly, keeping all its flavor. The King Kraken tempura was also delicious, even though it's a difficult ingredient to prepare. The elder judge began to cry because he found the boiled Leviathan to be the best dish. Everyone continued to praise Kasarina's cooking with delight and tears in their eyes. The host then pointed out how the judges were showering Kasarina with praise. Kyu just watched the whole thing in silence. Back with Kokuma, Lily continued fighting the Leviathan head-on. ISU tried to attack with magic from the sidelines, but the Leviathan noticed her. Lily told her to run, but ISU said it was the perfect time. She then used her magic called Absolute Zero. The whole ocean froze, making it impossible for the Leviathan to escape. Lily then took this chance to slice the Leviathan's body. In an instant, it turned into chunks of meat. Since her job was done, ISU walked away silently. Lily asked her to wait and said she didn't hate her at all. She confessed that she was afraid of witches because her parents were killed by one. Her memory was fuzzy, but she only knew that she feared witches, and her body reacted on its own. ISU confessed that she had been the same ever since a hero chased her out of her homeland. She lost her family and only Dory was left for her. Lily then apologized for how she had acted toward her and thanked her for saving her a while ago. She knew that ISU was not a bad witch. ISU then shyly asked to be her friend. Lily smiled and said that it might be hard since she still didn't know some things about her. She hoped they could get to know each other from now on. Next, they wondered how to carry the Leviathan to the cooking site. Just then, Wyvern got back up and Lily checked on his condition. However, Wyvern didn't answer the question and told them to look behind him instead. The girls were surprised to see a flock of adult wyverns in the sky. Back at the cooking contest, the judges had finished sampling all of Kasarina's dishes. They were now waiting for Team Mina's dishes, but there were still no ingredients in their area. Fetus and Sui looked worried as they watched. Kasarina reminded Kyu that there was little time left and he would end up disqualified. As she wondered about Kyu's plan, a huge shadow suddenly covered the arena. Everyone was startled by something in the sky. Dora, who had been hiding in Kyu's shirt pocket, came out and told Kyu to look up. The judges, Kasarina and the host, also looked up. Lily, ISU, and Wyvern arrived, bringing Kyu's ingredients with the help of a flock of adult wyverns. The spectators looked worried and scared upon seeing the wyverns. Lily exclaimed that they were Team Mina's and the wyverns landed with the ingredients. The host was shocked that Team Mina had wyverns delivering things for them. Kyu quickly ran toward Lily and gave her a big hug. He was glad that she was alright. Lily blushed and reminded him that she had promised to bring the ingredients. She then uncovered the packaging, revealing a frozen Leviathan. Lily explained that ISU had frozen the monster and Kyu thanked her for it. The Leviathan was then defrosted. ISU explained that Wyvern had asked the adult wyverns for help. Just then, Jack told Kyu that there were more ingredients. Kyu tried to thank him but paused when he saw an unfamiliar person. Lily explained it was Jack. She then dragged away the evolved Jack so Kyu could focus on cooking. Katarina was impressed that they were able to hunt a leviathan. However, she wondered if Kyu could make any dishes with the short amount of time he had. Kyu just smiled and Katarina looked surprised by his calmness. Kyu already knew that Katarina's skills were top class, and it would be his and Mina's first time preparing a leviathan. However, for this match, he had a trick up his sleeve. The others then started cheering for Kyu and Mina. Kyu began prepping the leviathan's meat, and its elasticity made it hard for him to cut. However, he continued and soon discovered that it was like an eel's meat. It had vibrant and lustrous soft white flesh. After peeling the skin, Kyu proceeded to cut the white meat into thin slices and then skewered them. The host wondered if Kyu was making kebabs. Kyu then explained that he was going to baste the meat with sauce and flame broil it. While Kyu was busy with the leviathan dish, Mina focused on prepping the other ingredients brought by the others. She turned a freshly caught fish into sashimi. She then proceeded to cut an octopus that Jack brought over and pulled out some sacks from it. The host could see that Mina was trying to make use of the edible squid eggs. Next, she got a clam monster, and with one strike in the middle, the clam opened, and the host was shocked by her skill. She also showed how she could open multiple clams in one go by pulling out the tendons behind. Mina continued cutting the flesh of the clam monsters, and the host noticed one thing. Mina was cutting everything to about the same size. Mina explained they were making the meat into bite-sized pieces. The surprise was not over as Mina brought out a killer plant to grind. She explained that it could be used as a sharp, spicy seasoning. The two girls suffered a stinging sensation in their eyes afterward. Mina noticed the time and told Kyu that everything was ready on her end. Kyu then told her to switch. With little time left, the host wondered what Team Mina would cook since they had less than 5 minutes remaining. The audience continued to cheer for them. Kyu focused on chopping the vegetables and mushrooms. He then prepared a sushi base and added the bite-sized meat and edible eggs that Mina had prepared. Seeing Kyu serious about his cooking, Katarina was speechless and looked amazed. Meanwhile, Mina opened their special sauce and dipped the leviathan meat into it before returning it to the grill. She started fanning the flames, and the smoke from her stove covered the entire cooking area, making the spectators and judges drool. She then brushed more sauce on the white meat, fanned it, and repeated the process. Surprisingly, Katarina started drooling and quickly covered her mouth. However, she couldn't stop her stomach from grumbling and felt embarrassed for getting hungry just from the smell. The host noticed her and grinned. Katarina threatened her, claiming she heard nothing. Just then, Kyu accidentally cut his hand and everyone became worried. He was anxious since they didn't have enough time, and he didn't have any flashy skills to show. He just needed to complete a few final steps. Suddenly, Kyu heard a "da" sound. He looked back and saw his friends cheering for him. Lily had threatened to punch him if he gave up. Fetus and ISU had also told him to keep going. Surprisingly, Sui had spoken proper words and called Kyu her daddy. She had asked him to keep going. Everyone was shocked that Sui could suddenly talk. Kyu was left speechless. Mina had then thrown a roll of bandage to Kyu and he had thanked her while coolly catching it without looking. Kyu reminded himself that everyone else had done what he expected from them. For that reason, he must not give up. Kyu continued making the sushi rolls while Katarina looked anxious. Kyu wanted to show his daughter the win. It was the last minute and the host wondered if Team Mina could make it in time. Everyone cheered for them until the time ran out. The host then asked them to serve their dishes. Kyu stepped forward with a food tray and presented a dish from his homeland sushi as an appetizer. He asked the judges to use the sauce beside the dish since it was the first time they had seen such a dish. They dipped the sushi into the sauce, and the judges began praising the taste, texture, and harmony between the seafood and plant-type monsters used. Kyu was glad to hear that the monsters he had raised were also praised along with the seafood. Mina then brought a tray of drinks and asked the judges to drink them as a palate cleanser. A judge asked what the green liquid was, and Kyu explained that it came from boiling then drying the widow leaf monster. Despite the concern that widow leaf was a type of useless leaf, the judges gave it a try. The elder judge found comfort in the green tea and didn't expect that widow leaf could be used. The other judges also found the aroma enticing. Even the spectators were surprised. The judges then continued eating other sushi rolls and discovered that their sense of taste was clear again. The elder judge then stared hard at the green tea made from the widow leaf. Kyo returned with the main dish and presented a small box, which confused the elder judge. Everyone in the spectators' seats was puzzled and worried seeing a tiny box as the main dish. Katarina grinned silently. Kyu then asked the judges to remove the lid. Inside was the flame-broiled leviathan on a bed of steamed wheat, which Kyu called the Levia box. The aroma alone whetted the judges' appetites. Everyone took a bite and fell silent. The spectators watched as the judges ate the Levia box meal without saying a word. looking like they had been starving for days. Kyu then asked them to wait and suggested changing the taste. The judges paused, looking confused. Kyu instructed them to move the contents of the box into a bowl, add some killer plant and yellow plant condiments, and finally add some tea. This created a hitsumabushi. Hitsumabushi is a specialty dish from Nagoya consisting of steamed Japanese rice, barbecue grilled eel fillet, a thick, sticky, sweet, savory sauce, and assorted condiments and garnishes. Kyu hoped the judges would enjoy the change in flavor. The judges started trying the makeshift dish, and everyone exclaimed how much the flavor had changed, turning it into an entirely different dish. In the end, the dishes were washed clean, and the senior judge exclaimed how delightful they had been. The taste testing had concluded, and now everyone awaited the judges' decisions. The first judge then cast her vote for Kasurina. The second judge sided with Team Mina. The third judge also favored Team Mina. The fourth judge, who appeared anxious, voted for Kasurina. It was an unexpected turn of events for the final vote to decide in favor of the gourmet master. The senior judge then spoke up and calmly declared that the grand cooking champion was Team Mina. Kasurina was left speechless as the host announced that this year's winner was the first-time participant, Mina Restaurant. The crowd erupted in cheers for their victory, except for Lily, who noticed Kasurina's grim expression. Kasurina approached the gourmet master seeking an explanation. However, before answering her question, the elder judge turned to Kyo first and inquired about the sauce he had presented. Kyo explained that it was soy sauce made from ripened red plant and wheaten with salt. Being a fermented seasoning, soy sauce complemented a wide range of ingredients and retained its flavor even with added sweetness or spiciness. Kyo admitted he had been using it since the first round. The elder had claimed that the Levia box meal was amazing, but what truly made it magnificent was the flavor enhanced by the rich sauce. Kasurina then tasted the soy sauce and agreed that it offered a unique seasoning. However, she couldn't believe that a single seasoning could elevate her dishes so dramatically. The elder acknowledged that all of Kasurina's dishes were unmatched, but pointed out one flaw: the distinct aftertaste left by seafood. He explained how Team Mina used tea to cleanse the palate, making subsequent dishes even more enjoyable, and even creating entirely new dishes with it. Despite his many years of experience, it was his first time seeing tea used in such a way. He praised Team Mina for their innovative dishes and thoughtful consideration for the diners. Kasurina sighed and admitted that she had focused solely on making her dishes robust, without paying enough attention to the diners themselves. Having been on the throne for so long, she had become fixated on her culinary skills and overlooked one of the event's purposes: to create a new dining experience. She turned towards Team Mina and gracefully conceded defeat, congratulating them both. Kyo's friends then cheered from the spectator seats. Kasurina handed the World Tree Gem to Kyu, surprising him, and he thanked her as he accepted it. The others rushed over to Kyu and Mina, embracing them in congratulations. Kyu expressed his gratitude to everyone, as they had successfully obtained one of the World Tree Seeds. 1 month after the cooking contest, Kyu and Sui found themselves salivating in front of a delicious dish. Dora explained that chefs from all over the world were gathered in the area. Kyu couldn't believe the size of the place, considering they were inside a ship. The three stood in awe at the food court on board the ship. Just then, Jack called them over and pointed out some attractive items. Kyu kept marveling at each dish he saw. Despite Kyu and Sui drooling over the food, Kyu reminded Sui they had a lunch reservation to keep. Jack felt disappointed that Lily couldn't join them. Kyu advised Jack to leave her be since she was still recovering. The group decided to explore and headed to the ship's deck. Jack was surprised to see strange creatures leaping across the ocean. Suddenly, Kasurina appeared and explained they were seamerman, which were supposedly tasty when fried like tempura. She mentioned she got tired of waiting and decided to come fetch them. Kasurina asked if they had any trouble boarding the ship. Kyu reassured her it was fine and thanked her for sending a boat just for them. Kasurina brushed it off, saying she already had one scheduled for Netzach. Kyu was amazed that Kasurina owned such a luxurious ship personally. Kasurina boasted about its speed but remarked it was her smallest ship. Leading them through the ship's dining area, Kasurina gathered the group to explore cuisines they hadn't encountered before as chefs. They then met the ship's captain, who was surprised to see Kasurina wandering around. Kasurina introduced Kyo as a guest, and the captain assumed he was the renowned monster cultivator, jokingly offering to accept monsters as fare. After exchanging greetings with the captain, Kasurina then led the group to lunch. They were treated to an elaborate seafood feast which left Kyu amazed. Kasurina mentioned she had put in her best effort to prepare it. Kyu eagerly sampled the fish and found it delicious. Kasurina looked pleased, attributing the dish's success to Kyo's soy sauce. Next, Kyu enjoyed a wine-braised clam served with flatbread made from red corn, a boiled monster. This combination transformed into a seafood taco, which Kyu thoroughly enjoyed. Kasurina explained that this was a way to vary flavors when one grows tired of strongly seasoned dishes. During lunch, Kyu had a sudden realization that boiled fish could pair well with strawberries. Dora expressed skepticism, but Kyu insisted it would taste great. Kasarina was impressed with Kyu's creative ideas and was glad she had joined Kyu on this journey, although Kyu disagreed. Later, Kasarina mentioned she had previously used various salts, alcohols, and monster fluids in her cooking, but had not realized how much effort making condiments required until she tried making soy sauce. Kyu praised her for successfully recreating soy sauce so quickly. Kasarina was proud to have discovered a method to speed up soy sauce fermentation, and was pleased with her reputation as a gourmet noble. Kyu was curious about her method, but Kasarina refused to disclose it. After the meal, Sui became excited and jumped onto Kyu's lap. Dora was startled and fell over. Kyu gently scolded her because Dora got scared. Sui then noticed Dora and glanced around. She apologized to her with a treat, and Dora was grateful. Kyu smiled as he watched the cute scene. Kasarina then suggested they relax until they reached Netsak. Everyone continued touring the ship until they returned to the room where the World Tree Gem was stored safely. Kasarina couldn't believe that such a seed was a pillar supporting the world. Kyu worried that he wouldn't obtain the World Tree Seed from Netsak. Kasarina explained that the king of Netsak was the heroic Emperor Rustum. She remembered that Rustum had spoken positively about Kyu during their meeting, and she hoped he would at least listen to another hero like herself. However, she wanted Kyu to figure out how to earn Rustum's trust. Kyu already knew that there were only 4 world trees left before the world would collapse. Since he was the only one who could grow the seeds, he resolved not to give up. After stopping the world's destruction, he could continue enjoying his farming in peace. Kasarina then claimed that she had the responsibility to assist Kyu since she felt guilty about cutting down a world tree. She told him to use her as he wished because she would follow him until the end. Kyu agreed and assumed that Kasarina would gain more ideas from following him. Sui then tugged his hand and said she would also help. Dora, Wyvern, and Jack also offered their assistance, and Kyu thanked them. Meanwhile, the ship's captain suddenly felt that the rip current had changed. He checked the horizon and noticed something emerging from the water's surface. In an instant, the ship shook violently, surprising Kyu and the others. Everyone regained their footing after the shake, and Kasarina asked what had just happened. The door opened and Lily came over to check on them. The group then decided to go to the captain and soon discovered the ship's crew bustling about. Kasarina asked what was going on, and the captain exclaimed that there was something troublesome ahead. Kasarina pressed for details, and the captain explained they were avoiding a whirlpool. Everyone was shocked to see the whirlpool in front of them, and the captain quickly turned hard to starboard. The ship barely dodged the whirlpool. Kyu then stared at the whirlpool and asked Lily if she saw something inside it. Since Lily didn't notice anything, Kyu concluded that he only imagined it. The captain sighed with relief, and Kasarina asked what it was. The captain explained that the whirlpools had appeared half a year ago, and were unexpected since tidal movements did not cause them. He had heard that a number of cargo ships had been destroyed recently. Just then, Jack noticed the Netsak continent, and everyone was in awe of the new lands they would set foot on. Kasarina suggested setting off to the capital once they reached the shore. In the desert of Netsak, monsters called desert horses pulled the carriage Kyu and the others were riding. He was impressed that some monsters obeyed people. Kasarina explained that there were plenty of harmless monsters when trained properly. However, they couldn't breed them and had to capture more every so often. Kyu felt the difference in climate compared to when they were in Chesed. Kasarina claimed Netsak was the hottest continent, with most of the land being desert. However, there were quite a few indigenous monsters, so it was not hard to live in Netsak. Upon hearing that, Kyu got excited and wondered if he could raise some. Kasarina then pointed out some cactiballs chilling outside. These monsters have a lot of liquid in their bodies and were essential in the desert. She further explained there were also killer scorpions, sand moles, catoblepas, and many more. The basilisk that the adventurers were fighting nearby was also a delicacy. Kasarina glared at it and felt like hunting one herself. The basilisk noticed her intent and ran away. Kasarina claimed it might be tough living in a tough environment, but the quality of monsters has evolved far. Just when Kasarina was recommending something, the carriage suddenly stopped and everyone crashed into each other. Lily then told Kyu to get off of her since he was pinning her down. Kyu quickly apologized to the embarrassed Lily, but she was fine. Jack then started teasing them. The coachman then checked on them, apologizing and claiming that monsters suddenly appeared on the way. Everyone then came out to check the monsters, and Kasarina started trembling in excitement. She exclaimed the monsters were called desert jellyfish and her top recommendation. She then reached her scabbard to the monster and the desert jellyfish grabbed it. Kasarina pulled hard and the main body of the monster hiding in the sand appeared. She explained how to capture them and recommended that Kyu should also try. Kyu refused, but Kasarina claimed they would not proceed unless they caught some. She then further explained that these monsters had collagen which toned the skin and was rumored to be food for health and beauty. Lily got excited and suggested they pull up everything. Everyone then excitedly pulled out the desert jellyfish, especially Lily. Kyu had only one, but he was happy to have achieved something. Kasarina then claimed that these monsters should have been buried deeper in the sand and blamed Kyo's blessing for attracting them. The carriage continued while being filled with desert jellyfish. Lily, as a woman, was happy to have something that would make her skin smooth. Kasarina then explained that desert jellyfish could be boiled, grilled, or dried and used in various cooking styles. Kyu then started touching the squishy monsters and realized something. Just then, the coach announced that they had reached the capital. It was a city known to be impregnable with tall, high walls. They entered the city gates and Kyu was surprised by the wide capital. However, he noticed some depressed-looking people and ruined buildings. Kasarina explained that the situation in the Notsec Empire's capital might have changed, seeing a few people and ruined houses. Everyone soon unloaded somewhere, and Lily asked what they would do next. Kyu wanted to meet the Emperor immediately, but Kasarina claimed it would be difficult and suggested they head to their lodgings first. That night, Lily was enjoying the view of the night sky until Kyu found her. She told Kyu he should be sleeping early. Kyu then showed a dish he had made in the hotel's kitchen. Excited, Lily asked what it was. Kyu said it was the desert jellyfish they had caught. Lily asked why they were transparent. Kyu explained they became transparent after being boiled, and then after chilling them, he added a syrup made from sugar and honey beets. Lily started eating and enjoyed the texture and taste. Kyu then explained that the tentacles had medicinal effects and the extract was good for the skin. Lily put down her spoon and suddenly went silent for a bit. She then thanked Kyu and apologized for being out of it since the tournament ended, calling herself a burden. Kyu was confused and said they won because of her help. Lily said she had recovered because of the rest she got. She then leaned on the balcony and told Kyu that no matter what happened, she would take care of anyone who tried to get in his way. She reminded him that she was his partner after all. Kyu smiled and agreed, and they gave each other a fist bump. The next morning, Kyu was sleeping soundly until someone came into his room. He was being woken up with a sword scabbard, and as he was getting up, the intruder poked him harder. Kyu got up and saw two armored melons in front of him, introducing themselves as Est, the captain of the Royal Knights of the heroic Emperor Rustum. Kyu went silent as he kept looking at the two melons in front of him. The dark-skinned beauty, Captain Est, exclaimed that the monster rancher Kyu would be in her custody per orders from the Emperor. Soon after, Kyu found himself walking in the halls of the Imperial Castle. Jack had secretly offered to be the decoy for their escape, but Kyu reminded him that they had come on friendly terms. Just then, he noticed Lily crying unexpectedly. She couldn't believe she had failed to protect Kyu right after promising to do so. Kyu told her to calm down since they were simply meeting the Emperor. They then reached the throne room and Est announced their arrival. The Emperor was glad to see them and introduced himself as Rostam, the ruler of Netsak and one of the Great Six Heroes. His demeanor made Kyu nervous. As Kyu tried to introduce himself, Kasarina casually called out to Rostam and expressed her gladness at seeing him in good health since their last meeting. Kyu was shocked that Kasarina was acting like the Emperor's friend. Rostam was also glad to see her well since they hadn't heard from her since the cooking tournament. He could see that Kasarina had been ensnared by the rumored monster rancher. Kasarina sighed, indicating that Rostam should have already known about her actions. She then stared at Kyu and confessed that it wasn't far-fetched to say that she had been ensnared. Suddenly, Rostam glared at Kyu, who then flinched in fear. Kyu cried and told Kasarina to stop making him look bad. Rostam chuckled and told Kyu to calm down. He explained that he only wanted to meet and speak with him. Kyu wondered why. Rostam then asked if he could really cultivate monsters, and Kyu confirmed it. Rostam then silently stared at him, and Kyu saw sadness in his expression. Rostam then asked Kyu to follow him. In a room, a girl was breathing heavily. Kyu froze and asked who the child was. Rostam introduced her as his little sister named Lean. Kyu asked if she was sick. Rostam explained that it was an incurable sickness since birth, and recently the progression of the illness had sped up, leaving Lean constantly bedridden. Lean had little time left, and Rostam asked Kyu to save her. Kyu was shocked and exclaimed that he was not a doctor. Rostam then insisted that Kyu could do it. He claimed Kyu could produce a monster that could cure his little sister's illness. Kyu was surprised because he had never thought about growing a monster that could be turned into medicine. Lily stepped in and told Kyu that he didn't have to follow the orders of an emperor or hero. She added that Rostam would be the one getting the money if they grew a monster that became a cure. Kyu was impressed by how calmly Lily handled the situation, even when facing a hero. Rostam smiled and decided to explain more. He shared that he had already tried all kinds of medicines from around the world and contacted famous doctors. They were able to temporarily cure his sister, but a permanent cure was impossible. He was amazed that she had lived this long. Kyu and Lily looked at each other in silence. Kyu then wondered if there was a monster that could cure Rostam's sister. Rostam then glared at Kyu and claimed he would take his all-purpose medicine if he couldn't. Kyu was shocked since everyone knew what it was. Rostam already knew about the rumors. He had already acquired several mandragoras before, but they were mostly fake. However, Lian was able to continue living by using one mandragora, and Rostam believed he could recreate the same situation. He threatened to take away Kyou's mandragora from him if he couldn't cultivate a monster that could cure Lian. Kyou exclaimed that he understood Rostam's situation with his sister, but protested that Dora was part of his family too. Rostam called Kyou's concept of family strange since the mandragora was merely a monster. Knowing that Dora was feeling scared, Kyou held her and stayed silent for a while. He then glared at Rostam and exclaimed that he would cultivate and grow a monster to cure Rostam's sister. Rostam promised that they would be protected during their stay, but they couldn't leave the country until his sister's illness was cured. After the meeting, Kyou and the others slowly walked away as they were escorted, and Kyou held Dora to calm her down. Lily couldn't believe the situation was worse than she had expected. Kyou claimed he didn't have a choice. He had already seen someone suffering and he didn't want to sacrifice Dora. Besides, they also needed to acquire the Jewel of Life for the World Tree. However, Lily was worried about the condition that they couldn't leave or contact anyone outside the country. Jack then reminded Kyou about Fetus and ISU. The escort confirmed they could send out letters, but he would review them every time. Soon after, they were led to a room which turned out to be extravagant, and Kyou asked if they could really use it. The escort confirmed that the whole floor was for them to use. Naturally, Kyou was shocked. Meanwhile, Kasarina was also taken to her room. She asked Est if she had the same rules as Kyou. Est confirmed that as long as she didn't bother the Emperor, she could come and go as she liked. Sui and Vern then enjoyed the soft bed, and Kyou felt jealous of how relaxed they were. He then opened his luggage, which alarmed the escort. Kyou explained that they were just his tools. The escort then noticed Dora and started drooling. Kyou got angry at the escort and hugged Dora to protect her. The escort apologized and asked how Kyou planned to grow a mandragora using cuttings. Kyou explained that, unlike dryads which grow that way, mandragoras are grown from seeds. Kyou then asked if the escort was leaving since he had finished his job. The escort reminded them that Captain Est would start watching them the next day and then left. Lily couldn't believe they were being watched under the guise of being escorted. Just then, Dora cried out to Kyou, offering to be eaten for Kyou's sake. Kyou told her to calm down since that wouldn't happen. Despite his promise, Kyou wondered if he could grow anything in a desert. His worries grew when he stood in front of a barren, dry land the next day. As Katarina wondered how they would start, Kyou brought out the seeds of the monsters he had cultivated in chest. Katarina was surprised at how prepared Kyou was. Kyou felt proud of his profession, but he was bothered by Katarina looking so relaxed while watching him. Kyou then ignored her and checked the soil. It was very dry, and he concluded that he couldn't grow anything in it. He decided to do one thing first, and Lily offered to help. They got some hose and started digging. Kyou then asked Est to water the plowed field. Est protested, asking why it had to be her, and Kyou reminded her that his monster friends were detained. Est had no choice and agreed. The plowing continued, and it was hard for Kyou. Lily felt the heat of the blazing sun. Est watered the plowed soil. Meanwhile, Katarina looked like she was on vacation. Kyou and Lily kept plowing the land, and Katarina soon offered them drinks. Soon after, Kyou brought out barrels of compost and asked Est for additional help. As the fields took shape, Kyou instructed Lily on how to plant the seeds, and the two worked in silence. It didn't take long for Kyou to transform the barren landscape into a wide field. Kasarina then asked why Kyou had added trash to the field. Kyou explained that it was compost which nourished the soil. She then noticed a separate container, and Kyou mentioned that it took 2 to 3 months to make. Kasarina was surprised that such a thing existed. Kyou then reminded them to work harder the next day. Lily agreed to do it nice and steady. Est was shocked that another day of labor was coming. Kyou thanked her for her help. Kasarina then suggested they eat some desert jellies for dinner to reward their hard work. That night, everyone had dinner together, and Kyou couldn't get over the crispy and fresh taste of Kasarina's cooking. Lily also took a bite and found the combination of fried rice and desert jellyfish to be great with soy sauce. Kasarina then gave her sunscreen made by combining desert jellyfish and cactus extract. She also brought out desert jellyfish ice cream, made by mixing sweet and seasoned desert jellyfish with sheep's milk and a little bit of ice magic. Kyou and Lily both enjoyed the sweet taste of the ice cream. Despite the tasty food, Kyou still wondered if monster plants could really grow in Netzach's soil. The next day, Kyou's worries were confirmed as he discovered that nothing had grown from the soil they plowed the previous day. They might never leave the castle after all. Days later, Kyou told Est that he wanted to gather and study the seeds of the species living on the continent. Est was surprised to hear that and called him crazy, reminding him how he had already failed in the past days. Kyou exclaimed that he couldn't grow a seedling in their current field. He mentioned that he was able to grow monsters on the Chest continent, and all he had to do was find monsters suitable to be grown in Netzach. Est then reminded him that he would need to leave the castle and defeat the monsters. Kyou strongly asked for permission to go out. However, Est worried that Kyu was only trying to escape. Lily then offered to go out herself and told Kyu to stay in the castle grounds. Kyu agreed, but Est disagreed. Eventually, Est agreed to let Kyu go outside, but she would accompany him. Kyu then asked for Jack to come along since he acted as an assistant. He then asked Kasarina, but she declined as she wanted to watch over the field. Soon after, in the arid desert, Lily subdued monsters while Jack watched curiously. Est explained that the monsters were desert mushrooms that could be used to make a delicious mixed monster salad. Lily then checked the monster's body and found a jewel. Est led them to a nearby oasis. Lily got excited to see water, but Est stopped her and suggested she take a closer look. On the water's edge, desert geckos were drinking. Lily wanted to quickly defeat them, but Est claimed the geckos had good hearing and were fast. Any noise from their armor would alert them immediately. She suggested they just watch and wait. Suddenly, a killer scorpion appeared from the sand and attacked the desert geckos. Lily worried they wouldn't be able to get the seeds if the geckos were hunted. Est told her it was fine since the killer scorpion poisoned its prey first, then took it back to its burrow. While the killer scorpion was busy dragging the gecko it had hunted, Lily seized the opportunity to attack it. She felt proud to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Est then claimed killer scorpions with stingers usually had a lot of jewels. Lily checked the scorpion's corpse and asked Jack to check on the gecko. Seeing they had gathered quite the amount, Lily exclaimed they should keep up their pace. Soon after, they were attacked by dung beetles. Jack used fire magic to block the dung shots from the beetles. A huge sand golem also appeared. Lily easily cut it down until it got smaller. With Jack's support, Lily finished off the sand golem and also got its jewel. They also hunted down a basilisk and got its jewel. They took a quick break and Jack hydrated himself. The 3 then continued to a huge burrow and discovered slimy-looking tentacles popping out of the ground, which Est quickly took down. As they continued traveling, Est called Lily weird for accompanying Kyo. She said it was strange to grow and work together with monsters, since monsters were supposedly evil and should be defeated. Lily thought that kind of thinking was also a bit odd. She believed everyone could benefit from living peacefully with monsters. Est agreed a little but found it unthinkable to work with monsters. She knew Lily made a living by killing monsters as an adventurer. Lily acknowledged that such requests existed, but she tried to avoid them since she had abstained from killing monsters without reason. Est was confused and called Lily strange again. Jack also agreed. Jack then noticed their bag and Est suggested they go back. However, she accidentally stepped on something and tentacles captured her. A monster emerged from the sand and seemed to enjoy the sight of Est. Jack and Lily casually remarked that it was Est's fault for not paying attention. Annoyed that the two were not helping, Est decided to cut the tentacles herself. However, she started falling from a high place. Jack angrily asked what she was doing. Est realized how foolish she had been and braced herself for the hard fall. However, Jack caught her and started scolding her for being distracted. While the two argued, Lily faced off against the monster. Jack eventually put Est down. Lily then asked what the monster was. Est exclaimed that it was a watermelon monster common in Netzac. However, it was the first time she had seen one near the castle, and the one in front of them had evolved from rank E to rank C. Est tried to assist Lily, but Jack intervened and stopped her. Lily skillfully dodged the monster's tentacles and flew away. Using the sun to blind the monster, Lily swung her sword and sliced it in half. Est was surprised by the display and Jack hurried off to check on Lily. She was shocked to witness someone defeat a C-ranked monster in a single strike and realized her mistake of lowering her guard. Meanwhile, Kyu was deeply concerned about how to cultivate a healing monster in the desert. Just then, Sui, Vern, and Dora appeared, surprising Kyu that they managed to leave the room. He cautioned the two children not to wander too far when they played. Dora then asked if Kyu was still searching for cultivation methods, and Kyu confirmed this as the seeds he had brought were not growing in the desert. Kyu then asked Dora if she could give him one of her seeds. Dora confirmed she could spare one, but mentioned it might take a month to teach him how to grow it. Kyu felt disappointed that even if he had the seed, he couldn't grow it himself. He had seen a TV show before where plants that don't usually grow in deserts were thriving. His talk about Earth confused Dora. Just then, Kyu and Dora encountered a guard in the hallway. The guard immediately recognized Kyu as the monster farmer whom their emperor had been concealing after seeing Dora. He assured Kyu that they wouldn't stop him if he wanted to escape and encouraged him to try if he felt alone. The guard didn't want to say those things in front of the emperor and excused himself. Kyu became anxious, thinking he might be killed if he couldn't find a cure. He also suspected there was more to the emperor's sister's illness than met the eye. As he pondered what was going on, someone heard him from the other side of the door. She asked if someone was there and Kyu decided to open the door. Inside, Kyu met Lian, who was now awake and looking well. Kyu was startled when he saw Lian and noticed she looked different from Rostam. Lian agreed that she wasn't like her brother and wondered if Kyu was one of the new doctors. Kyu explained that he was a monster cultivator who was asked to raise a monster to cure her illness. Lian questioned if that was possible. Kyu observed that Leanne didn't seem afraid of monsters. Leanne admitted she had only read about them and hadn't met one in person. Curious to learn more, she invited Kyu into her room, which he entered without hesitation, noting the tall bookshelf. Inside, Leanne asked how exactly Kyu could grow monsters. Kyu recounted starting with killer plants and meeting Jack and Dora, who volunteered to be eaten. Along the way, he unexpectedly won a major cooking tournament and sailed the seas, encountering a whirlpool. Leanne remarked that Kyu's life seemed like something out of a picture book. Dora praised her master's accomplishments but then realized she shouldn't have revealed herself. Excited, Leanne commented it was her first time seeing a monster, especially an all-cure mandragora like Dora. Dora quickly hid and Leanne apologized for her excitement, noting Dora seemed shy, which Dora confirmed. The conversation relaxed, and Leanne invited them to call her whatever they preferred. When Kyu hesitated due to Leanne's royal status, she suddenly felt pain and coughed. Concerned, Kyu offered to call a doctor, but Leanne assured him she was fine, just a little overexcited again. Suddenly, Sui appeared, showing Kyu a mud ball. As Kyu thanked her, Leanne asked about the child. Kyu introduced Sui as his foster child. Leanne stared at Sui closely and realized she was also a monster. Kyu worried about others discovering that Sui was the Demon King's child. Leanne sensed that Sui didn't seem like an ordinary child and wondered if it was just her imagination, making Kyu uneasy about Leanne's sharp intuition. Sui had given the same thing to Leanne, and the princess had felt touched. Kyu scolded Sui for bothering Leanne, who was feeling sick. Sui became sad, and Leanne promised to play with her when she got better. Suddenly, guards barged in and started scolding Kyu for bothering their sick princess. Leanne tried to explain to the guards that she had asked Kyu to tell her stories. Kyu tried to excuse himself, and Leanne asked him to hear more stories later. The guards closed the door, locking out Kyu and the others. Soon after, Kasarina met Kyu and the girls. Kyu noticed a pleasant smell, and Kasarina explained it was Netzak's local cuisine that she had turned into rice porridge. She thought Leanne might enjoy it. Kyu realized Kasarina had changed the dish. Kasarina then explained the steps. Sauté desert onions and boil fermented Netzak cow's milk together with its beef. The porridge was easy to digest and highly nutritious, though not yet perfect. She said there was much more to do with rice porridge. Kyu returned to the failed fields. Initially, it had been an order from the emperor, but now Kyu was determined to heal Leanne. While pondering these thoughts, Lily, Jack, and Est returned. Jack proudly displayed the monster seeds they had gathered, which brought joy to Kyu. Lily mentioned that much had occurred during their absence. It was then that Kyu noticed the watermelon monster seed, triggering a disturbing memory for Est. Shaking, she explained that the monster was called the water reservoir of the desert due to its high water content. Lily then presented a fruit from the monster, and Kyu took a bite. He exclaimed about its bitterness, prompting laughter from the others. Despite finding it unpleasant, he noticed the water inside and suddenly had an idea. Taking the watermelon seed and a mud ball made by Sui, he realized he could grow something in the desert. He thanked Sui, and Lily guessed that Kyu had come up with a plan. Seeking Lily's help, Kyu began to repair the fields. Lily wondered if the idea would succeed, and Kyu told her to watch. He wanted to use compost, but it wasn't ready yet. Jack confirmed that he had finished planting the desert monster's seeds. Kyu instructed him on what to do next, which made Jack nervous. From the castle, Rostam observed Kyu and his friends working on the fields. A day passed, and finally, something sprouted in the fields. Everyone was amazed to see vegetation thriving. Lily marveled at the sprouts and asked if they were really from the seeds they had brought back. Kyu confirmed they were ball cacti, watermelon, and even desert jellyfish. To everyone's surprise, there were also jack-o'-lanterns and killer plants sprouting. Est was astonished, knowing it was thought impossible to grow seeds from other continents. Proudly, Kyu claimed there was a method and showed them a mud ball, explaining it was not just any mud ball but a clay dumpling. The others had wondered if the mud ball could really make the monster seeds sprout. Kyu explained that the desert soil lacked nutrients and moisture. However, if the seed was wrapped in a mud ball, it could retain its moisture and sprout. Lily was impressed by Kyu's new method, but he cautioned that it was too early to celebrate. He insisted that he must first mature the monster seeds. Kyu then asked Est for help in pulling out the sprouts that were growing together and planting them separately. He also had her place the excess sprouts into the manure. As Est worked, she noticed nearby sprouts growing rapidly, and she was amazed by Kyu's skill. Kyu then asked her to help prune the plants, as they were growing quickly. Lily and Jack silently focused on their own tasks. Kyu continued to direct Est, and she observed how he transformed into a different person when tending to the growing monsters. During the day, the plants matured, and Kyu celebrated as they successfully cultivated monster plants in Netzak. Dora congratulated her master because they would now be able to grow more varieties. Est couldn't believe that monster plants from the Chest continent were also thriving in Netzak's soil. Suddenly, Est readied her sword as she noticed the monster plants surrounding her. Jack told her to calm down since the monsters Kyu cultivated were harmless. He then offered her a killer plant fruit. Est initially tried to refuse, but Jack insisted she taste it. She silently took a bite and admitted it was delicious, feeling embarrassed as everyone stared at her. While they teased Est, Rostam suddenly appeared and greeted Kyu coldly. He examined the monster plants and asked if Kyu had managed to grow anything that could cure Lian's illness. Kyu explained that none of the monsters cultivated so far had curative effects. Rostam glared at him and seemed ready to attack, but hesitated when Kasarina called out to him. Suddenly, a guard approached to report that something had happened to Lian. Rostam hurried to his sister's room and asked her to hold on a little longer. Seeing her brother's worried face, Lian cried and eventually fell asleep. Kyu looked devastated as he watched the siblings. The doctor arrived to explain a few things, and Rostam turned to Kyu, suggesting they might need the all-cure after all using his mandragora. In the chest continent, Isu visited Kyu's house where Fetus welcomed her. Isu inquired about what Fetus was doing, and Fetus explained she had just read a letter from Kyu regarding the Emperor's order to cultivate monster plants in the Netsak continent. Isu felt concerned and hoped they could support Kyu in any way. Fetus then suggested that donuts were the best snack while working. She combined ingredients with cooked rice to make onigiri, preserving them with magic to send to Kyu and the others. Meanwhile, Kyu grew increasingly anxious about cultivating the monster plant to cure Lian's illness, as he didn't want to sacrifice Dora. Dora then confronted Kyu, and he reassured her that he was considering other methods. At that moment, Sui ran towards him and pointed to the sky. Kyu noticed something flying towards him and it struck him on the head. The strange ball then rolled on the ground, making odd sounds as it bounced. Kyu recognized the voice coming from the ball. It was the goddess. She mentioned feeling lazy and decided to help Kyu pass the time. Kyu remembered that the goddess couldn't directly interfere, and she explained she had used a secret exit to come. She then asked what had been happening lately. After Kyu briefed her on the situation, he wondered if there was a way to escape it. The goddess confirmed that only Mandragora had the best effect on Lian's illness, but she believed Kyu could find an alternative if he looked at things differently. Suddenly, Lily arrived with rice balls sent by Fetus and Isu. Kyu enjoyed the raspberry flavor in the onigiris and discovered more jellies inside. The blend of raspberry and blueberry flavors delighted him. It dawned on him that combining the two fruits created a new flavor, blue raspberry. This led Kyu to another realization. Shortly afterward, Kyu presented something resembling the desert jellyfish to Est and Kasarina, but they noticed it was different. Kyu explained it was a byproduct of his power, and Est realized he was attempting to cultivate a new type of monster. Kyu expressed hope that this might help save Lian. Est then suggested growing a mandragora instead, but Kyu preferred another approach. The following day, Rostam observed Kyu's failure again. He asked for the mandragora, but Est intervened, requesting more time. Rostam reluctantly agreed. Est questioned what went wrong with the monster, believing the compost should have been sufficient and it shouldn't have perished early. Kyu had a realization and sought the aid of some magicians. Est enlisted their help in preparing the compost. Est knelt before Rostam and assured him that Kyu's ability was genuine, convinced only Kyu could rescue Lian. Rostam relented, granting Kyu 3 more days. Sometime later, Kyu was relieved to find the compost ready and perfect. He hurried to work, determined to save Lian in time. Soon enough, the monster plant sprouted, bloomed, and tentacles emerged. A young girl emerged from the flower and introduced herself as Doraj, the Mandoraj. Seeing the new monster plant, Kyu appeared on the verge of tears of joy. Seeing the half-woman, half-jellyfish in front of them, Lily wondered if she would be the monster that would help them. Kyu explained that Doraj was a combination of mandragora and desert jellyfish, called a Mandaraj. Lily wondered how Kyu came up with combining monsters. Kyu said the idea came to him while eating the rice balls that Isu made. He used a technique called composite cultivation, which combines different types of monsters when growing them. Dora then asked if Doraj could be considered her little sister. Doraj pointed out that it was more accurate to call her Dora's daughter. She then remembered that they needed her tentacle and casually pulled one out. Kyu and Lily got worried and wondered if it was okay. Doraj told them not to worry because a tentacle would grow back right away. Kyu then decided to take it to Lean immediately, and Lily would tell Rostam about the discovery. However, Lily wondered how they should feed it to Lean. Kyu took a bite of the tentacle and wondered what they should do. In the kitchen, Kasarina agreed that the tentacle was hard to eat as it was. She decided to help and quickly asked Kyu to prepare the ingredients. She was excited to work with a new monster ingredient. First, she peeled the skin and then cut it thinly with precision. Doraj was there too, watching as her tentacle was prepared as food. Kyu quickly did his part and finished immediately. Kasarina then started cooking the ingredients and also finished stir-frying the devil carrots, which would make the dish sweet. She boiled the soup and then lowered the temperature. After 5 minutes, the Madaraj creamy soup was ready. A worried Rostam was glad that the two came over. They presented the medicinal soup and made Lean eat it. Lean took a bite and said it was delicious. Rostam then checked on his sister, who said she was dreaming because she had just eaten something delicious. Rostam assured her it was not a dream and asked Lean to eat more. Lean continued eating until the plate was clean. An energetic Lean thanked everyone for the food. She said her body felt light, and Rostam told her she ate what Kyu had cultivated. Lean thanked him, but Kyu said he only did what he could. He reminded her how she wanted to hear more of his stories and asked her to get healthy first. Lean felt touched that he remembered and called Kyu her savior. After that, Lean gradually got better. Because of this, Rostam and the others changed their attitude towards Kyu and his group. For the first time since they arrived in Netsak, they spent their days peacefully. At first, Kyu was half forced to do things, but now he was glad he had saved Lean. Kyu then contacted the goddess, who looked impressed. He even showed her a combination of a jack-o'-lantern and a desert watermelon. The goddess exclaimed that even she, a goddess, couldn't think of such a cultivation method. In the first place, monsters were born from the seeds of Sephiroth, the tree of life. Kyu was essentially like a god for breaking the world's laws. Since Kyu used new cultivation methods, the goddess expected that Kyu's skill level would also be increased. She looked forward to Kyu's discoveries. A few days later, Rostam greeted Kyu with a menacing expression. Kyu apologized as usual, and Rostam wondered why he was apologizing. He said he wanted to talk to Kyu. The two went to the palace's balcony. Rostam asked Kyu to bring Lean a pet because she had been ill for a long time and didn't get to have any friends or acquaintances. He asked for Kyu's help. Kyu realized that it had all been to keep Lean from feeling lonely. Rostam then gave Kyu a crystal taken from a desert cat, a rare monster in the Netsak desert. He had heard that the monsters Kyu cultivated were harmless to humans. Kyu promised to cultivate a monster to be Lean's friend. Soon after, Lean happily hugged the desert cat. Kyu and Lily found the scene cute. Kyu said it was a gift for Lean's recovery. For some reason, Lily looked disappointed. Lean thanked Kyu and left with her new friend Pochi. Lily hoped that Lean would get along with the cute desert cat. Kyu agreed. He also mentioned that his skill had leveled up, but it didn't seem to have any dramatic effects. However, after 1 week, Pochi grew into a huge, majestic tiger-like monster. Even Kyu was shocked and got scolded by Est for it. Kyu tried to deny that he knew the monster, but Lean calling the tiger Pochi gave it away. Rostam was amazed that the desert cat had evolved into a desert tiger. He said it was a rare evolution and commended Kyu. Since Rostam didn't say anything further, things might be fine. Just then, Pochi put Lean's head in his mouth, and Est quickly moved to protect Lean. However, Pochi was only playing around and licking Lean. Kyu told Est that everything was fine, but the knight still had trust issues with monsters. Still, the two continued watching Lean and Pochi play with the other kids. Kyu assured Est that Pochi was just a big cat. Surprisingly, Pochi hit the 3 kids playing with Est, and they flew into the water. Est and Kyu tried to help them, but saw that the kids were actually having fun. Lean was surprised that the 2 adults were nearby. Soon after, Est woke up after nearly drowning. Kyu was relieved and explained that Pochi had saved her after she sank into the water because of her heavy armor. Est then went to Pochi, thanked him, and apologized for doubting him. While Est was busy with Pochi, Lean thanked Kyu for giving her Pochi. She knew it was a request from her brother. She had always wanted a friend beside her. Kyu agreed that this was Rostam's goal and called him a good brother. Lean said she was happy to have Rostam as her brother and promised to take care of Pochi. Later, Kyu showed a seed, which confused Lily. Lily couldn't believe Kyu had forgotten his reason for coming to Netsak. Kyu told her not to worry since the reward he wanted would come after he cultivated the seed. However, he wondered how he could grow the Bahamut, which had a threat rank of SSS. Another day arrived and everyone enjoyed the lunch that Kasarina prepared. Kyu complimented her cooking as usual, but Kasarina was grateful to Doraj. She had used ingredients from the monsters Kyu raised and combined them with Doraj's Mandaraj legs. She also made a smoothie from Mandaraj and bitter watermelon. Additionally, she made sushi inspired by Kyu's cooking and stir-fried Mandaraj with basilisk meat. For dessert, she made a dish from Mandaraj with Netsak's cow milk and syrup. Kyu found everything delicious, but he wondered if Doraj was okay. Doraj assured him she was fine. Rostam then began to praise Kasarina's skills as a heroic sage. The meal continued until Lean exclaimed that everything was delicious. Kasarina was pleased, and Rostam suggested she not push herself too hard. Rostam asked where Pochi was, and Lean said he was eating in a separate room. Just when Kyu wondered what Pochi ate, Doraj slithered in and asked if her legs were delicious. Doraj was teasing her master as usual, and Sui, who noticed them, pulled something out of Kyu's bag. It was Bahamut seed, and Kyu warned her about not asking for permission. Since Sui wanted to play with it, Kyu gave her permission. Kyu then wondered what kind of monster Bahamut was. Rostam said it was a monster from myths and was worthy of the SS rank. He shared that he once confronted the Demon Lord, who was also SS ranked and had a similar aura to Bahamut's crystal. That was the conclusion he came to after Kyu confirmed it was a seed. Lily then pressured Kyu about growing the monster plant. However, the seed wasn't reacting to Kyo yet. Kyo then looked at the seed and remembered some things. There were two types of monsters. First were the plant types that grew directly from seeds. The second type was the animal type that came from eggs that grew on trees. Currently, Kyo could cultivate both types and assumed he could grow something from Bahamut's seed. However, he didn't know how to grow it. Recalling that it was a water-type monster, he wondered if it was like Leviathan. As he thought of Leviathan, Kyo started drooling. Suddenly, Sui, who had been playing with Bahamut's seed, slipped and fell into a nearby pool. Kyo quickly ran to save Sui, but Lily dived into the water faster. After a few seconds, Lily resurfaced with Sui. Kyo checked on them and Sui started crying. Lily, though wet, said she was fine. Kasarina then explained that the pool was meant for keeping and observing sea monsters. Lily thought Sui had just accidentally fallen into the pool while playing. Sui then handed Bahamut's seed back to Kyo, and it felt a bit slimy. Kyo suddenly had a realization, and Lily noticed his expression. He grasped the seed and everyone watched him. Kyo felt a spark from the seed and Lily asked what was wrong. Kyo was shocked because the seed had never reacted before. He then realized that the water was the cause. But it wasn't just any water, it had to be seawater. He exclaimed that he had figured something out and thanked Sui for being his goddess of luck. Kyo then told Rostam that he had thought of a way to cultivate Bahamut, and it might have been the only method. He explained that Bahamut was a sea monster and should be cultivated in the sea. Everyone was shocked by this idea. He explained that it had never reacted until it was submerged in the pool of seawater. Bahamut had always been known as a dragon, but it was originally a giant fish. Judging by the reaction, it would not be enough to cultivate Bahamut in a pool. Rostam asked if the only way was to go outside the kingdom and cultivate the seed in the sea. Kyo confirmed it and strongly asked for permission from Rostam. That night, Kyo fell asleep and met the goddess in his dream. He asked her what was happening. The goddess then asked if Kyo noticed that the city was ransacked and many people were injured when they arrived in Netzach. She explained that when the 6 heroes cut down Sephiroth and defeated the demon lord, Sui, 4 signals were also sent to Sephiroth. After receiving the signals, Sephiroth created 4 new monsters as the new guardians. They were all considered demon lords and ranked SS. She said Bennu, one of the demon lords, was trying to destroy Netzach. If Kyo failed to cultivate Bahamut, then Netzach would fall. The goddess left, and Kyo woke up. Kasarina said they were getting close to the harbor. The carriage kept moving and Kyo was glad that Rostam gave them permission. Kasarina said it was all thanks to Lean, who wanted to join them. S couldn't leave since she was the captain of the knights. Kyo then said Netzach would fall if Bahamut was not cultivated, so he was thankful to Lean. Lean thanked him too for giving her a role to play since she couldn't always rely on her brother, and she was also the princess of the kingdom. Kyo assured her that he would definitely cultivate Bahamut and return to Netzach safely. Just then, they finally arrived at the harbor. Their carriage followed the line and Lean was glad to see the sea for the first time. The captain from before appeared and greeted them. He already knew the details from Rostam and asked where they wanted to go. Kyo asked for a location with a depth of 30 meters and minimal ship traffic. The captain then shared rumors of a shark dragon in the area. He reminded Kyo about the whirlpool they had encountered before and claimed the same shark dragon created it. Kyo was somewhat disappointed and said he needed a deep place for Bahamut's seed to react. The captain agreed to take Kyo wherever he wanted and reminded him that returning to the shore would take some time. As Kyo tried to hype the travel, some citizens started panicking and rushed toward the ships. Kasarina saw that the citizens could also sense the incoming danger. Rostam had initially asked Kyo to cultivate Bahamut to fight the SS-ranked monster threatening Netzach. The future of the country depended on Kyo's cultivation. Soon after, Kyo and Kasarina went underwater using pressure nullification magic, allowing them to move freely. Kasarina explained that she needed this skill because she needed to procure water monsters as ingredients. Kyo then wondered about the difference between monsters born on land and those born in water. Kasarina claimed it was basically the same, but sea monsters' eggs grew on corals. She further explained that some sea monsters were born from very small eggs and some from huge ones, depending on the size of the coral they were born on. Kyo then assumed that Bahamut's seed would grow really big. He proceeded to bury the seed in the seafloor's sand, and decided to check on it the next day. The next day, a coral sprouted and Kasarina claimed it was a type she hadn't seen before. Kyo was glad that his hunch was right. The two resurfaced and shared the good news with Lean. Lean was very happy about it. 1 week later, Kyo and Kasarina were surprised to see that the coral had grown very big, especially the egg. It was the first time Kyo had seen such an egg as a monster cultivator. He expected an SS-ranked monster to hatch in 2 or 3 days. Kasarina was impressed that Kyo could even cultivate a sea monster. Just when they thought things were going well, the water suddenly changed its current. Smaller sea monsters were being dragged away and Kasarina told Kyo to hide behind a rock. Kyo wondered if there was a sudden storm. Kasarina disagreed, saying it didn't feel natural. Seeing a whirlpool forming, they assumed it was the shark dragon. It was the same whirlpool they had encountered on the way to Netsak. Kyu then noticed Bahamut's egg swaying with the currents. Kasarina instructed Kyu to return to the boat while she stayed behind to fight the shark dragon. Kyu worried for Kasarina, but the heroic sage started undressing. She claimed she couldn't fight properly while wearing extra clothes. She reminded Kyu that she was a hero and promised to lend her power to him. If she left, she would be going against her words. Kyu took her clothes and grabbed the anchor's rope. He wished that Kasarina would return safely. Kyo resurfaced and immediately informed the captain that the shark dragon had appeared. Meanwhile, Kasarina asked the shark dragon to show itself and slashed the huge whirlpool. A shark dragon appeared, but it was larger than usual. Kasarina assumed that it had learned to create a whirlpool with its huge body and speed. The shark dragon then started spinning again and made a more violent whirlpool. Kasarina tried to fight it with her sword, but she looked hopeless. She was wounded in different areas of her body and wanted to stop the annoying whirlpool. Just then, she remembered Kyo's words about moving freely in the water like on land. She activated a spell and dodged the shark dragon's attack. She then used water pressure nullification magic on it. The shark dragon flinched and started moving awkwardly. It dropped to the sea floor, and Kasarina asked it what was wrong. The shark dragon looked confused. Kasarina wondered why it wasn't attacking. The angry shark dragon continued attacking but kept moving awkwardly. Kasarina saw that it couldn't move well without the water pressure. She was glad that the shark dragon was a pure underwater monster. She claimed it would now meet its end. The shark dragon accepted the challenge and charged toward Kasarina. She pointed her sword at it and stabbed its head. The impact was so strong that everything around them was blown away. The shark dragon was finally defeated. Kasarina then checked on Bahamut's egg and was surprised by something. Kasarina quickly resurfaced and told Kyu that something was wrong. Kyu went underwater with Kasarina again to check on Bahamut's egg. Kyu was terrified to see a crack in the egg. Kasarina apologized for taking too long. Kyu broke into a cold sweat and claimed that it was not damaged. Kyu exclaimed that it was hatching. A bright light then stunned the two underwater. On the other hand, Netsak Castle was attacked by fireballs. The soldiers fought back by shooting at the monster, which turned out to be a huge monstrous bird. It then cast more fireballs and launched them at the soldiers and the castle. The whole castle shook, and even the Emperor's chamber felt it. Rostam realized that Kyu had told the truth about Bennu attacking them. Est wondered why it kept attacking them instead of other places. Rostam wondered if it was for revenge or to steal everything from him. He suggested they stop speculating and gave Est some tasks. Outside, the soldiers did not give up on defeating Bennu. Both archers and magicians did their best to shoot arrows and cast spells on the huge bird monster. As the captain, Est ordered all the soldiers to fire at will and not lose momentum. However, Bennu kept dodging the attacks by spinning and flying higher. As it spun, it burst into flames and flew further. It was truly a monster. Bennu then stopped spinning and created a bigger fireball. Est ordered the men on the right wing to retreat. However, it was too late to escape and the right wing exploded. Est looked desperate as Bennu showed its dominance. She watched as another fireball was created, but all of a sudden Lily appeared. She faced the huge fireball and sliced it multiple times until it exploded. Jack then ordered the Watermelon Battalion to keep Bennu busy. Lily checked on Est, who confirmed that she was okay. Lily was surprised that an SS-ranked monster was smaller than expected. Est agreed, saying it wasn't always about the size. Lily then exclaimed that she would stop the Bennu's movements while Jack supported her. A watermelon helped her leap toward the Bennu. Lily then tried to stab the Bennu's back, but it was only slightly affected. The Bennu flew up higher, leaving the watermelons behind. Even Lily was shaken off, but fortunately the watermelons were on time to save her. Lily then asked Jack to attack one more time. Meanwhile, in the Bay Area, Dorage was serving rice balls with her tentacles. The injured soldiers took one bite and quickly recovered. She made everyone eat her rice balls. Dora was worried, seeing her daughter acting rudely. More injured soldiers arrived, and Dora offered her petals. On the other hand, Sui was staring at the ceiling as if she saw something through it. Back at the battle, the Bennu decided to change targets to the soldiers. Jack then intervened and used his fire-based technique against the fireball. Surprisingly, his small black flames pierced through the huge fireball and dissolved it. The Bennu was surprised, but even more surprising was Lily going through the flames along with a watermelon. Lily then stabbed the Bennu's chest and dealt heavy damage. Est ordered the soldiers to fire at will and aimed at the Bennu, which was falling from the stab. Lily dodged the barrage and the Bennu started falling like a dead bird. Everyone wondered if they had defeated it. However, the flames around the Bennu started crackling and its whole body shone brightly. Everyone was shocked to see the huge monster evolving at such an unfortunate time. It created more fireballs, and Lily ordered everyone to escape. It then fired everything it had, and explosions were heard and seen everywhere. Everyone was blown away, and the city turned into a sea of flames. Lily got back up, but Jack and the others were knocked out. She couldn't believe the Bennu had evolved in the middle of the battle. Normally, evolution was only meant for weaker monsters. However, something as strong as the Bennu could undergo one in the heat of battle. Lily agreed that the monster was indeed an SS rank. However, she didn't want to back down because she didn't want to lose face to Q. She tried to attack the Bennu, but she was only sent flying back to the ground. As Lily despaired upon seeing the evolved Bennu, Rostam's voice resounded, thanking everyone for holding out. He appeared with multiple swords floating around him like Gilgamesh opening the gate of Babylon. He asked them to leave the fighting to him. Rostam and the Bennu stared each other down before Rostam launched the first attack. The Bennu retaliated with flames. Rostam's special ability allowed him to control weapons freely. Arma Magna. Lily complained that Rostam should have joined the fight earlier with his powerful skill. Rostam explained that it always took time to prepare the skill and he couldn't maintain control over the weapons for long. Despite being busy explaining, he struck at Bennu like it was an easy target. He then manipulated massive comet-like swords and pierced through Bennu's body. Bennu was injured but managed to fend off the blades. What was more shocking was its ability to regenerate from the damage. Suddenly, a mark appeared on its body, leaving Lily shocked. It was the same mark that belonged to the person who had killed her family years ago. She trembled, recalling that tragic moment in her life. The mark grew larger, empowering the Bennu. Lily screamed in anger, matching the Bennu's roar. Sui's small voice pleaded with her not to do it. Lily rebounded off the walls of the buildings and flew toward the Bennu, narrowly dodging fireballs. Rostam warned her about the danger of her reckless actions. Lily landed on the Bennu, using its feathers for support, and stabbed its head repeatedly in a frenzied manner. The Bennu screeched in pain and flew toward a building to shake her off, but Lily persisted. She grabbed the Bennu's feathers again for support and continued her relentless assault on its head. Rostam broke into a cold sweat when he realized he was witnessing a battle between beasts. He could see that Lily possessed power comparable to the 6 heroes and wondered about her identity. The Bennu continued to shake Lily off. Lily slipped, and the Bennu prepared to attack at point-blank range, aiming to kill her. Just as Lily thought her life was over, a torrent of water collided with the fireball. She opened her eyes to see Q. He apologized for being late. Lily noticed they were flying. Q introduced her to Bahamut, a whale-like SS-ranked monster. It had been a close call, and Q was relieved that Bahamut had saved her in time. He scolded Lily for her reckless fighting, attributing it to the mark. Lily didn't comment on it and simply asked Q to defeat the Bennu. After Q confirmed, Lily fell unconscious. Lean offered to take care of Lily and they descended. Q and Bahamut returned to the skies. Q instructed the young monster to unleash its full power. The two S-ranked monsters exchanged attacks. The collision of blazing flames and high-pressure water created explosions in Netzach's skies. Everyone on the ground watched as the explosions continued, and the two monsters clashed in mid-air. Bahamut fired multiple water shots, which the Bennu dodged. Distracted, the Bennu was struck to the ground by Bahamut's tail like a fly, and fell unconscious. Suddenly, Sui appeared, defending the Bennu. She exclaimed that the Bennu wasn't attacking the city on purpose. Q was surprised, but even more surprising was the Bennu crying a river. Slowly, the Bennu got back up and flew away with weak flaps. Q told Bahamut not to chase after it. He hadn't raised Bahamut just to defeat monsters after all. He hoped for the day when he could talk to the Bennu. After the battle, everyone welcomed Q back. He was relieved that everyone was alright and apologized to Rostam for being late. Rostam reassured him, saying he was fine because Q had managed to revive the great Bahamut. He believed the Bennu wouldn't return anytime soon. As an emperor and hero, Rostam genuinely thanked Q. They shook hands and Rostam promised to reward him with the Jewel of the Tree of Life. Q then checked on Lily. She assured him she was healed thanks to the healing magic and Doraj's onigiri. Est mentioned Doraj played a significant role in healing everyone, and the entire country thanked Q for the monsters he raised. Q was surprised and said he was just happy to raise monsters in the first place. He was surprised that Est was complimenting him. Est admitted she was surprised herself and glad to know there were harmless monsters. Q was pleased to hear that. Just then, Lean approached Q and respectfully thanked him for saving her life and her country. Q suddenly felt embarrassed hearing Lean's words. Lean then gave him a present of gratitude. Just as Q wondered what it was, Lean kissed him on the cheek. Lily couldn't believe her man was being stolen in front of her. Fortunately, it was just a cheek kiss. Soon after, Q woke up in his bed next to an unknown girl. Lily checked on him and discovered the girl. She then scolded Q. Q tried to explain, but Lily continued to act like a suspicious wife. The girl then giggled and reminded them that they were comrades in arms against Bennu. Her words confused both Q and Lily. After the events in the Netzach Empire, Q and the others headed to the continent of Hod, riding on the back of Bahamut. However, Bahamut would stand out in the city, so they left her waiting outside of the city. Lily was shocked to find out that Bahamut could transform into a human form. Bahamut confirmed it. saying she wanted to be with everyone. She claimed Sui taught her how to transform. Sui looked proud as her teacher. Bahamut further explained that SS-ranked monsters had part of the Demon Lord's power, allowing them to change into human form. Kyo was relieved that he didn't become a scummy person, bringing a woman home drunk. Jack and Vern greeted her happily, but Dora had an existential crisis, seeing another cute girl appear. Bahamut then asked them to call her Moo instead of her monster name. Kyo took Moo out to buy her some clothes that looked like her monster form, a whale shark. Lily saw that Moo liked her human form. Their main goal was to gather information in Hod to find the hero of the continent. Everyone explored the new city to get information. They soon saw that the city was in worse shape than Netzach, as if another S-ranked monster had attacked it. Then Moo hugged Kyo, happy to be walking with him. Kyo said he was also glad. However, the affection between the two made 3 other girls jealous. Sui then started acting spoiled and pulled Kyo to her side. Moo said she wouldn't lose Kyo to Sui even if Sui was her master. Their loudness caught the attention of the nearby citizens. An old man asked Kyo if they had food with them. He wanted to buy some because there were fewer monsters around, leading to less food. Kyo and Lily looked at each other. Kyo then offered some jack-o'-lantern, jack-o'-watermelon, and dried cockatrice meat to the man. Others saw this and also wanted to buy some, thinking Kyo was a merchant. Kyo said he was an adventurer and didn't have a lot of supplies. He noticed the nearby utensils and looked at his ingredients. He asked if he could borrow the pot. The old man felt bad about letting Kyo cook the food for them. Kyo didn't mind since he was also thinking about having a meal. Sui and Moo helped gather firewood and Jack was in charge of burning it. Kyo asked Lily to cut the ingredients into bite-sized pieces. A man then claimed he hadn't seen the monster ingredients Kyo brought before. Kyo explained they were from the Netzach and Chest continents. He dried them to make preserved rations and recommended it because drying the food kept the flavors and nutrients. The others wondered why Kyo wasn't adding seasonings. He explained the flavors were already in the ingredients. After waiting for the soup to simmer, the dried monster plant pot was ready. Lily could see and smell how delicious it was. The citizens lined up while Kyo served them the soup. Each one of them got a bowl, and Lily noticed how everyone was eating like there was no tomorrow. Both Kyo and Lily were surprised. The old man apologized since everyone was already at their limits, and they were thankful for Kyo's help. However, the serious thanks were interrupted by the old man's grumbling stomach. Kyo then gave the old man a serving of the soup, and the old man was revitalized by the flavors. Little did Kyo know some men were observing them in secret. Kyo approached the old man and asked why everyone had such a tough time getting food. The old man explained that Bennu had been attacking them since the evil tree was cut down. Kyo and Lily were shocked to hear that Hod had also been attacked. Because of Bennu's assaults, Hero Zachuk decided to destroy all types of monsters and began the monster subjugation plan. Kyo and Lily were worried because this meant less food and hardship for the citizens of Hod. They couldn't believe a hero would cause his people to suffer. This led to Zachuk being known as the Tyrant Hero. The old man also mentioned a group of people opposing Zachuk. Kyo had come to Hod because it was closest to Netzach, but now he realized it was under the rule of the Tyrant Hero. Lily feared they would face difficulties. Kyo agreed they had no other option. The old man then asked if Kyo wanted to meet the hero. Suddenly Zachuk's soldiers arrived and confronted them. They aimed their spears at Jack, thinking he was a monster. Kyo intervened and asked them to stop, explaining Jack was their companion. As they were questioned, the men from earlier took action. Lily handed Kyo a document and he formally introduced himself. Presenting the document from Rostam, he explained he had come to meet the hero. The guards asked why he had come. Kyo said he came to request the jewel from the Tree of Life from Zachuk. However, despite his confident declaration, he ended up in prison along with the others. A few hours earlier, an angry Zachuk rudely demanded to know their purpose, mentioning she was busy. The guard then showed her Rostam's introduction letter, which surprised her. Kyo felt nervous as Zachuk read the letter. Zachuk seemed slightly positive, and Kyo wondered if he could negotiate with her successfully. However, Zachuk tore the paper into pieces and ordered her men to arrest them. Now, in the present moment, Kyo couldn't believe they were in prison. Lily speculated that someone like Zachuk, who disliked monsters, saw Kyo, a monster cultivator, as an enemy. Kyo felt the introduction letter had been useless. Jack reminded him that they owed their lives to Rostam, as they hadn't been killed on the spot. He believed they might be released after Zachuk dealt with some matters. However, Kyo feared they might face exile once released. Lily found their quest to collect the jewels of the Trees of Life challenging. Suddenly, Moo sneezed. Kyo apologized for putting her in prison just after she had taken human form. Moo didn't mind at all since she wanted to stay with him wherever he went. Kyo was happy and realized he needed to smile more often. Just then, Lily heard noises from upstairs. She asked them to quiet down because there was a disturbance above them. Lily then saw the ceiling starting to break and told everyone to run to the nearby wall. The floor collapsed, covering everyone in dust. Suddenly a girl in daring clothing appeared. She seemed to be searching for Kyu. She reached out her hand and said she had come to help him. Kyu looked confused, wondering why a stranger was rescuing him. Soldiers discovered the hole and the girl had no choice but to carry Kyu like a princess. Kyu blushed as the girl leaped high out of the hole. She told the others to follow. Lily said they had no other option. Everyone escaped from the prison. They found themselves outside atop a tower. The girl insisted they should freefall from there. Kyu exclaimed they would have died from that height. She argued they would also die if they stayed put. Lily exclaimed they had no choice but to run. Everyone then jumped from the tower and Kyu freaked out upon seeing a person below them. He worried they would hit the passerby, but instead the passerby helped break their fall. Kyu and the others found themselves carried by gusts of wind which safely guided their descent. The passerby revealed they used wind magic and was relieved they were safe. Spears suddenly rained down on them and soldiers chased them closely. The hooded person instructed them to escape first. Soon after, the group reached a cliff with a view of city lights. The hooded person mentioned they had already covered some distance. He then removed his hood and introduced himself as Anshul, Isu's brother. Kyo and Lily were shocked to see him. Anshul giggled and thanked them for looking after his little sister. He had wanted to meet them at least once and was pleased to have encountered them. Besides being a monster cultivator, Kyu was famous for defeating the sage hero in a cooking competition and assisting the emperor hero against a strange monster. He mentioned that rumors about Kyu were spreading worldwide. Lily then asked if Anshul was also a witch, considering that ISU was one. Anshul confirmed, and that made Lily a bit uncomfortable. Anshul asked her to rest assured since he was not an enemy and he actually wanted to help them. Kyu was left confused, but Anshul promised to explain further later in their base, since there was a chance that Zachuk was still looking for them. Kyu thanked Anshul for saving them, but he claimed they had an objective on the continent. Anshul claimed he would also help on that matter, but he wanted Kyu and the others to listen to their story first. He reminded Kyu that they owed him one. Kyu didn't have a choice but to follow Anshul first to his base. Anshul claimed he was not forcing them and he assured their safety. Anshul then introduced the girl as Ruby, someone who ended up working with him. He explained that Ruby was the expressionless type of girl and told Kyu not to worry since she was getting on Kyu. Anshul then led the group to his base. However, Lily looked grim for some reason. Kyu then asked why even the males were also called witches. Anshul explained that females were dominant in their clan to manifest powers. However, there are rare chances when a male like him can manifest power. Their power was simply a special skill or talent they were born with. As for ISU, she had the power to communicate with monsters and had abundant mana. He claimed he was nothing compared to ISU. At the back, Lily continued glaring at Anshul like she was doubting something about him. Soon after, everyone arrived at the village, which was also Anshul's base of operations. Anshul announced that the monster cultivator had arrived. Everyone gathered around, and Kyu asked what was happening. Anshul asked Kyu to help the people by using his power to provide food, as they had been suffering from a lack of resources due to the tyrant hero's actions. Everyone agreed with Anshul and asked for Kyu's help. Anshul pleaded for help, even if it was just a little. Kyu then asked why Anshul was looking out for these people. Anshul said he had met them during his travels and felt bad that he couldn't help them. He thought that the rumored monster cultivator could solve the issue. Kyu then offered his help, and everyone was glad to hear that. He asked Lily if it was okay to be sidetracked, even though their objective was the jewel of the Tree of Life. Lily said she didn't see it as a problem and agreed with his decision. Kyu then claimed that before he planted any seeds, he wanted to try short-term cultivation. He wanted to find a seed that would grow quickly, ideally within one day if possible. He noticed that the soil in Hod was similar to that in Chest, and by using the mudball method they had used in Netsack, he assumed they could succeed. Kyu wanted to act fast so he could meet Zachuk again. Lily asked why. Kyu then explained that initially, he cultivated monsters to survive and have food. However, as he encountered various kinds of monsters, his perspective changed. He wanted to tell Zachuk that not all monsters are evil, they can be partners or even family. Seeing that Kasarina and Rostam understood, he hoped that Zachuk would also come to understand the monsters. Lily then smiled and remarked that Kyu's words truly sounded like him. She then offered to help with the cultivation, and Kyu began thinking about what to do next with the mud ball. Just then, Lily felt a hand rubbing her back. She blushed, thinking she was not Kyu's type at all. She continued feeling the hand on her thighs until she couldn't take it anymore. She then grabbed the hand, but it wasn't Kyu's hand at all. It was some weird tentacles coming out of her bag. Kyu wondered why Lily was calling out to him. It turned out the feelers were actually Doraj's tentacles. Somehow, Dora felt sorry for her daughter's pranks. They then found a letter among the tentacles. Doraj had left some of her legs in their luggage so they could regain their energy and remember her. Kyu decided to share some with the villagers because the tentacles were full of nutrients. Suddenly, Kyu had another idea. Anshul appeared and asked what they had. Kyu explained it was a mandarage, a cross between a mandragora and a desert jellyfish. Anshul looked amazed. Kyu then realized they could extract some of Dorage's essence from the legs and pour it on the seeds before planting. Lily agreed since mandarage was highly nutritious. Kyu then asked for everyone's help. Kyu chopped the tentacles into pieces and squeezed the essence out of them. The seeds were soaked in the essence and then planted in mud balls. Kyu proceeded to plant the seeds in the fields, and Anshul and some villagers came to watch. Everyone watched the fields rumble as Kyu used his powers. Plants grew instantly and everyone was amazed. Kyu claimed they could harvest the next day. Watching the villagers in awe, Lily concluded that their food crisis would end this way. Kyu wanted to check the condition of the plants the next day, and then they would leave right away. Lily then admitted that she felt uncomfortable around Anshul. Kyu wondered if it was because Anshul was a witch. Lily fell silent, and Kyu wondered what had really happened in the past. Lily then shared that her homeland had been destroyed by the Ceiling Witch a long time ago. She didn't remember it clearly because of the shock. Kyu asked her not to force herself to remember. Lily then realized she was feeling trauma. They then recalled writing a letter to ISU to tell her they had met her brother. Behind a tree, someone was secretly listening to their conversation. Meanwhile, Ruby was watching some soldiers raiding houses with monster plants. The villagers protested that they wouldn't be able to live without them as food. The soldiers forcefully confiscated the plants and burned them. Zachuk watched the flames burn. Behind her, people protested about her actions, saying she was making them die of starvation. Zachuk exclaimed that she could do what she wanted in her country, and suggested they leave instead. The people called her unfit to be a king and unforgivable. Zachuk called them ungrateful bastards. She asked the soldiers where Kyu was. A soldier then reported that a scout had found Kyu. Upon hearing the report, Zachuk decided to head to the hidden village herself. Back in Chest, ISU checked on Dory as usual and invited her for a walk. They walked around Kyu's field, which was full of monster plants. Mochi then appeared with a letter. She hoped everyone was doing fine in Hod Continent and opened the letter. As she read it, she trembled upon learning that Kyu and the others had met her brother. She then asked Fitis for a favor. Leaving Dory in her care, she used magic, preparing to teleport somewhere and bade farewell. Suddenly, Mochi jumped towards her and joined ISU in the magic circle. ISU was surprised and asked if Mochi wanted to come along. Mochi gave a determined look and ISU asked him not to stray from her since she would perform multiple teleportation spells to reach the Hod Continent. Soon after, the two finally arrived in the Hod Continent. However, they found it strange that they couldn't see any monsters around. Mochi started wriggling and they heard some sounds nearby. They peeked and noticed a familiar field with killer plants and cockatrices. Meanwhile, Kyu and Lily were happy to see a plentiful harvest, knowing their work was done. Just as Kyu was planning to visit Anshul, they heard a rustling sound from the nearby bushes. Mochi then came out crying and hugged Kyu. Kyu was confused to see Mochi, and then ISU suddenly appeared, looking weak and shaky. She said she came to see her brother but soon fainted. Afterward, ISU ate to recover and apologized for coming so suddenly. She said she couldn't sit still after reading Kyu's letter. Lily asked how ISU traveled so quickly. ISU explained that she used teleportation magic, but it was only enough for her and someone small like Mochi. She also couldn't teleport long distances at once and had to cast the spell many times. She then asked how Kyu and the others were doing. Kyu admitted that they had been imprisoned for a while by the tyrant hero who hated monsters and started killing them. ISU then understood why she hadn't seen any monsters on her way. Kyu reassured her that Anshul saved them because he was looking for them. ISU looked scared and suddenly stood up. She said she would go meet her brother. Surprisingly, Anshul came over and stared blankly at ISU. The siblings finally met each other. They went outside and ISU asked if he was really her brother. She asked why Anshul didn't tell her he was still alive and well. Anshul looked conflicted and that gave ISU a clue. ISU wondered if Anshul was planning to do something to Kyu and the others. Meanwhile, Kyu and Lily were worried for the siblings since their reunion didn't seem touching. Mu suddenly screamed when she saw Mochi, and Kyu introduced them to each other. Even the usually expressionless Ruby found Mochi cute. She touched Mochi and agreed that Mochi was cute, but she thought Almirage was cuter. Mu wondered what an Almirage was. Kyu was glad they were getting along just fine. Kyu and Lily then went outside to look for ISU. However, Lily noticed something and helped Kyu take cover. Explosions appeared and echoed through the village. Kyu and Lily were unharmed and everyone else came out to see what was happening. Villagers started screaming that Zachuk's army had appeared. Kyu and Lily panicked and wondered why Zachuk had come to their hidden village. They grouped together and ran to escape. They searched for Anshul and ISU, calling their names until Anshul appeared. He said they were fine and suggested they leave right away. As they ran, Anshul gave Ruby a signal. ISU looked worried for some reason. Soon after, the group reached the edge of the village to escape. but Zachuk was there waiting for them. She couldn't believe they had been hiding in such a rural place. She was glad she had finally found them. Her soldiers surrounded Kyu and the others. With a menacing expression, Zachuk exclaimed she wouldn't let them run away again. Kyu and the others were now cornered. Before Zachuk realized it, people had already started calling her the tyrant hero. She fought alone against fierce monsters and always emerged victorious. She commanded the extermination of all monsters on the continent, regardless of whether they were a food source. Even hidden food supplies from monster plants were discovered and seized by her soldiers. When people complained about not being able to survive without these resources, they were punished for speaking out, and their homes were burned to the ground. One day, a child, furious with Zachuk, threw a rock at her. Despite the adults' pleas for forgiveness, the villagers and their village ended up being burned. Now, in the present, Kyu and the others found themselves surrounded by Zachuk and her soldiers. Lily asked Zachuk about her intentions. Zachuk claimed she had no personal issue with them, but she referred to them as mere puppets. Confused, Lily asked for clarification. Zachuk laughed and called on someone to step forward and explain. She called upon the ceiling witch to speak. Everyone, especially Lily, was shocked. Zachuk then speculated on what the ceiling witch might do next. Anshul then removed his gloves, revealing himself as the ceiling witch. He opened a portal and swiftly pulled Kyu inside. Isu questioned her brother's actions. Zachuk attempted to intervene with teleportation magic, but it was too late. Everyone stood frozen as Anshul disappeared with Kyu through the portal. Zachuk had tried to slash Anshul, but he was too late, and the two vanished from sight. Lily trembled in disbelief. Zachuk then targeted Isu and asked if she was a witch. She had clearly heard Isu calling Anshul her brother. Lily interrogated her, asking where her brother had gone. A blade was pointed at Isu's neck, and Lily urged her to speak if she knew anything. Isu explained that the teleportation magic her brother used could transport multiple people to a predetermined destination, and they could trace the magical remnants from their path. Lily couldn't believe that Anshul had been targeting Kyu from the beginning. Zachuk ordered Isu to lead the way. Lily protested, concerned about Isu being taken away. As the adults argued loudly, Sui and Mu started to worry. Suddenly, Mu realized she could help. The whole area lit up brightly as Mu transformed back into her monster form. The place exploded and Mu flew away with the others riding on her back. Lily was relieved that Mu had saved them. Lily then checked on Isu's condition. Isu felt upset that her brother had become the ceiling witch. Lily noticed Ruby was missing and assumed she was with them. She had a bad feeling but couldn't believe they would kidnap Kyu. However, she doubted if the person really was her brother. Sui and the others also felt down since Kyu was missing. Lily encouraged them to stay strong because Zachuk was also chasing Anshul. They needed to hurry and rescue Kyu. Lily relied on Mu for the journey. Now knowing Anshul had destroyed her hometown, Lily wondered what he planned to do to Kyu. Meanwhile, Anshul and Ruby watched the village burning in the distance. He sighed, worried about the sudden turn of events, and told Ruby to move to a specific location immediately. Kyu was awake but unable to move freely. Ruby understood the orders and transformed into a familiar monstrous bird. Kyu couldn't believe Ruby had been the Bennu all along. Lily, on her way to rescue Kyu, hoped he would be okay. A week later, Kyu enjoyed some relaxing time with Sui and Mu. Lily expressed her relief about Kyu's safe return after being kidnapped. Kyu smiled, confident that the girls would rescue him. Lily agreed, noting they were partners and it was expected. Despite recent events, Lily was thankful everyone was safe. Kyu nodded in agreement, visibly relieved. A week ago, Kyu was tasked by Anshul to grow a monster using combined seeds, similar to what he did with Doraj. Kyu rapidly grew a massive tree but worried Anshul intended to use it to build an army against heroes. As the tree obstructed nearby growth, Kyu grew concerned. Ruby then remarked on Kyu's empathy for the monster that devastated Netzach. Kyu recalled seeing Ruby cry and questioned why she cooperated with Anshul. Ruby explained her will was overridden by a seal controlling monsters, leaving her no choice but to obey Anshul. Kyu realized Anshul possessed a skill to control monsters via a seal, powerful enough to command even an SS-ranked creature freely. Suddenly the seal glowed, signaling that Anshul had summoned Ruby. She instructed Kyu to seize the chance to escape. Kyu attempted to speak but Ruby silenced him and tasked him with delivering the monster from the hatching egg to Zachuk. Ruby then transformed and departed. Kyu questioned how long she would obey Anshul's commands. Ruby reassured him, confident that Kyu would soon help her. With a powerful beat of her wings, Ruby ascended into the sky, creating a brilliant light akin to the sun. Lily and the others spotted the fiery ball and wondered about its origin. Seeing the light, Anshul realized that Ruby had betrayed him. Zachuk and her soldiers recognized it as the Bennu. Some soldiers cautioned it might be a trap, but Zachuk dismissed their concerns and ordered them toward the light. Hearing the soldiers march, Jack grew anxious. Lily reminded everyone to find Kyu before Zachuk did. Isu apologized for wanting to chase after her brother alone. Lily expressed concern for her safety, but ISU insisted that her brother would flee if too many people approached. She asked the others to watch over Kyu and set off alone, leaving Lily and Mochi worried for her. Suddenly, Lily spotted smoke in the distance. She told Mu to fly, and together they passed by the soldiers until they found Kyu. They rushed towards Kyu, who was laughing after narrowly escaping a deadly fire. Lily noticed something and asked who the child was. Kyu explained that the child was the secret weapon Ruby had entrusted to him. He needed to deliver the child to Zachuk. Lily understood his plan and mentioned that ISU had gone alone to find Anshul. She was certain that Zachuk would also appear there. The group hurried to find ISU. Meanwhile, ISU met her brother and asked what he was doing. Anshul said ISU wouldn't understand. He reminded her how their hometown was destroyed by heroes despite them living quietly. They were killed simply for being witches. All Anshul wanted now was revenge. ISU exclaimed that he still had her, his sister. Anshul activated his magic seal and attacked ISU to silence her. A fireball flew towards ISU, causing worry for Mochi, who had followed her. Trembling in pain, ISU asked why Anshul was doing this. Anshul laughed like a madman, and ISU realized he was no longer the brother she knew. In the area where a fire had burned earlier, Zachuk and her soldiers couldn't see anyone anymore. Suddenly, Zachuk spotted distant flames and recognized them as Benus. She hurried alone in that direction. Meanwhile, ISU was being overwhelmed by her brother and Ruby. Mochi became worried and said something to comfort her. ISU agreed that the person in front of her was no longer her brother. Anshul was pleased to see ISU motivated and couldn't believe the crybaby had changed. ISU remembered past times with her brother and declared she was no longer that person. She unleashed powerful ice magic, but Ruby fought back. An explosion occurred, throwing Mochi aside. Kyu and Lily noticed the ongoing battle and Mu flew towards them. Ruby was struck by a large icicle and knocked out, reverting to her human form. Anshul insulted her, calling her useless and not even a good shield. He then drew a knife and threatened ISU, claiming her desire for revenge was perfect. Just when ISU thought she was done for, Mochi saved her by entangling Anshul with his thread. ISU ordered Mochi to bind him, leaving Anshul immobilized. Zachuk then appeared, ready to kill Anshul, but Mochi arrived just in time to restrain her too. Zachuk acknowledged Mochi's thread was made of high-purity mana and not easily cut. Kyu and the others arrived. ISU ran toward Lily, crying. Lily praised her for holding on. Kyu praised Mochi for defeating a witch and a hero. ISU wondered about the other person with them. Zachuk glared at the newcomer and was shocked to recognize Azai Dahaka, whom he thought he had killed. Anshul asked where Kyu had obtained the seed to grow Azai Dahaka. Kyu remained silent, and Anshul blamed Ruby for ruining his plans. Kyu grew the seed as Ruby had requested and brought the monster to Zachuk. However, Zachuk was confused because the tyrant hero knew the monster and mentioned killing him. Azai Dahaka then assured Zachuk that she no longer had to suffer as he would save her. At the time when Zachuk's father, the hero and emperor of the Hod continent, passed away, Zachuk felt overwhelmed by her role as his successor. To escape the oppressive atmosphere, she often ran outside, and during those times she met Dahaka. They enjoyed each other's company until Dahaka unexpectedly transformed into a dragon and attacked her. After being abandoned by Dahaka, Zachuk soon encountered Anshul, who informed her that Dahaka was actually Azai Dahaka, a powerful monster ranked SS, tasked with guarding the Hod continent's world tree from malevolence. However, the tree had been felled under Zachuk's father's orders, prompting Dahaka to seek revenge. Faced with no other choice, Zachuk had to slay Dahaka to protect the capital, yet she underestimated how cunning monsters could be. Immediately after killing Dahaka, the seal inscribed on him was transferred to Zachuk, surprising Anshul, who hadn't known the seal could move between individuals. He speculated that Zachuk's intense hatred might have attracted it to her. Initially planning to exploit Dahaka to destroy the country, Anshul now decided to use Zachuk instead. Bewildered, Zachuk asked for clarification, but Anshul merely smirked, expressing anticipation for what the future held. Back in the present, Zachuk stared angrily at Dahaka. Dahaka then thanked Zachuk for killing him before. Now he offered his help and absorbed the seal from Zachuk. Zachuk trembled as she watched Dahaka pull out a knife while apologizing for hurting her. Suddenly, Dahaka stabbed himself without warning and collapsed to the ground. Kyu rushed to his side to help and apologized for wasting his time raising him. He insisted it was the only way to destroy the seal. Lily then asked Anshul if there were other ways to remove the seal. Anshul claimed what Dahaka did was the only solution. Lily slapped him in anger. Kyu then asked Jack if he had any mandarage legs. Zachuk then asked Isu to release her and ran to Dahaka's side. Dahaka expressed how happy he was that Zachuk was the one who ventured into the forest. When he was born, the world tree had already been cut down, and he felt hopeless and useless. But meeting Zachuk gave him a new purpose in life. Dahaka's arms had fallen, indicating his death. Zachuk cried out desperately, pleading for Dahaka not to leave. Her tears dripped onto Dahaka's horns, and unexpectedly the seal on him was lifted. Everyone, including Anshul, was shocked. With the seal finally removed, Dahaka regained consciousness. The two friends were overjoyed and embraced each other. ISU then speculated that the horn on Dahaka's forehead was likely a unicorn's horn. Unicorn horns were known as potent remedies for demons, capable of fully curing poisons or curses. Kyu wondered if Ruby had foreseen this when she asked him to nurture Dahaka's seed. Seeing everyone celebrating, Anshul then connected with Ruby, who still retained his seal. Knowing she couldn't defy his commands, he rose up as Bennu. Everyone was caught off guard by Ruby's powerful flame attack. They were sent flying, and Anshul's bindings were undone. Sui regained consciousness first and noticed Kyu was unconscious. The others were also knocked out except for Anshul and Ruby. Anshul then commanded Ruby to defeat everyone. Ruby conjured a stream of fire to burn them all, but Mu tackled her. Mu, in her Bahamut form, absorbed all the damage from the attack. She reverted to her human form and urged Sui to run away, but Ruby launched another fire attack before they could escape. Sui cried out and created a barrier to block the attack. The fire rebounded onto Ruby, causing her to fall to the ground. Sui approached Ruby, leaving Lily wondering what she was doing as she lifted her arms. Anshul couldn't believe the seal on his hand was being removed. Isu woke up and called out for her brother. Confused, Anshul asked why ISU was there. Ruby's flames intensified and blew Sui away. As a result, the seal returned to Anshul. He activated his teleportation magic and slipped through a portal. ISU was left bewildered by what was happening to her brother. Kyu had felt sad as he watched Ruby turn into a jewel. He remembered Ruby saying that only Kyu could release her from her chains. He vowed to revive her someday and asked her to rest for now. Soon after, the Imperial soldiers helped extinguish the flames in the forest. Zachuk then formally thanked Kyu for participating in the battle and saving Dahaka. She promised to give him the seed of the world tree. Kyu expressed his gratitude. Zachuk felt regretful for everything and promised to stay strong and seek redemption alongside Dahaka. Suddenly, Sui and Mu complained about being extremely hungry after using up too much magic power. Kyu decided to cook something. Dahaka and Zachuk joined in to prepare the ingredients. Lily noticed that Kyu was making the same dish he and Mina had made together before, but instead of killer wolf, he used cockatrice meat. He even created a new dish, roasted cockatrice wrapped in mochi's threads. After a while, Kyu served the meal to everyone and they all enjoyed it. Peace had finally returned to the Hod continent thanks to Kyu and his friends. Soon after, Jack excitedly asked which continent they would go to next. Vern and Dora were also excited. Just as they were about to ride Mu in her Bahamut form, Sui started turning red. Kyu then heard a faint thud behind him and found Sui unconscious. A doctor examined her and said Sui was overworked and stressed. She advised Sui to rest for the next 2 to 3 days with some prescribed medicine. Lily saw that Sui was in pain and figured they would delay their return home. Kyu then looked at the unconscious Sui and told the others they would go home. His decision confused the others. The group continued with their plan to go home, riding on Mu's back. Kyu hoped that Sui wouldn't wake up soon. Lily, who had been quiet for a while, admitted that Sui had attacked Ruby to stop her from hurting the rest of them. She wondered if Sui's actions had made her sick. She also remembered that there were only a few world trees left, and Sui might be feeling the pressure of developing her powers as the next Demon King. Kyu agreed and just hoped that Sui could rest well when they got home. He also looked forward to eating Mina's cooking. Lily exclaimed that she wanted to too. Kyu told Sui that they would be home soon. Later on the Chess continent, Kyu and the others were shocked to see many monsters roaming around their fields. Kyu and Lily felt like crying because it had been a long time since they last saw their home. The monsters gathered around and Kyu wondered how they had been doing. They could see that the monsters had grown a lot. Just then, Mina appeared out of nowhere. Kyu asked why she was in his field. Mina explained that after Isu went to follow Kyu and the others, Fetus declared she would become a worthy woman for Kyu and left on a cooking training trip. Mina came over as a substitute to take care of the fields. Kyu was thankful to Mina and glad to hear that Fetus was doing well. Mina then noticed Sui unconscious, and Kyu explained that she was overworked. They went inside and Kyu wondered if Mina could cook something for Sui, knowing that Mina was a cooking champion. Mina agreed and Kyu and Lily were happy. The three of them went to Mina's restaurant, and Kyu gave her the prescribed medicine for Sui. They planned to add it to the meal without changing the medicine's effects. Dora even offered her petals, which had healing properties. Mina decided to make porridge for Sui. She boiled wheat with lots of water and let it cook. Kyu helped with the cooking and reminisced about the cooking competition. They combined the cockatrice egg with some sweet milk and poured it into a pan while adding the medicine. To finish, they sprinkled Dora's petals and the porridge was ready. Kyu then went to Sui and fed her the food Mina made. Fortunately, Sui managed to swallow the food despite looking unconscious. However, since then Mina made many dishes, but Sui still hadn't recovered. Mu was getting worried that her master was not waking up. Kyu worried that there was no change over the few days and wondered if it was due to overworking. Lily even thought it might be related to Sui being the Demon King. Kyu looked very worried. He wondered if Kasarina could do something if she were with them. Lily agreed since Kasarina was the heroic sage. She then decided to bring Kasarina to Sui and pick up some of Doraj's legs on the way. A few days later, Lily returned with Kasarina. Kyu then asked Kasarina for help. Lily showed them some of Doraj's legs and Cyclops' innards she had collected. She said it was hard to beat the creatures, but Kasarina exclaimed that Lily had defeated them easily. Afterward, Kasarina checked on Sui after hearing that she had collapsed on the Hod continent. Since medicine and healing magic had no effect, Kasarina assumed that something external was causing Sui's illness. Although she was unsure about the situation, she promised to do everything she could to help. She suggested making a simplified version of the thick soup that Kyu once made for Lean. Everyone then went to the kitchen, and Kasarina and Kyu started cooking. They prepared various ingredients: mandarage legs, devil carrots, cyclops innards, and other things. Kasarina even added some stem of a dead man's tree, some immortality tree, a spoonful of halma, and a little silphium for taste. Kyu and Lily looked worried, but Kasarina assured them that the mixture would help Sui recover some of her lost magic power. She said that both humans and monsters could eat the mixture. Jack then doubted if it would be effective since Sui was a demon king. Kasarina asked Jack to test the mixture. Jack tasted it and claimed that it was not that bad. Kyu and Lily then freaked out as jack-o'-lantern branches and fruits grew from Jack's head. Kasarina saw that it was effective. Confident in the dish's effects, Kyu fed the sick Sui, but nothing happened. Kyu asked Sui what was wrong. Kyu went out and told the others that it didn't have an effect. Lily was worried since even Doraja's essence didn't help. Kasarina then concluded that cuisine was not a solution anymore, and they should start thinking about their next move. She claimed there were still other beasts in the world that had healing or medicinal properties they could try out. Lily knew it was her turn to do something. She then prepared to set out with her sword, and Kyu apologized for making her leave again. Lily was fine with it since it was all for Sui's sake. She also got a list of beasts from Kasarina and realized they were easy to obtain. Kyu also counted on Isu, who was tagging along. The two then set off to hunt beasts. Kasarina then claimed she would decide which cuisine to cook with the new ingredients, and Kyu relied on her. Kyu then returned to Sui's side. After some time, he heard some people talking to Kasarina. She explained they brought reference books for her. She also suggested discussing things with the goddess, but Kyu hadn't received a response yet. Kasarina then assumed that the goddess wanted them to handle the problem themselves. However, the Demon King wouldn't have a successor if Sui died, and if that happened, and the other world trees were cut down, the world would be destroyed. They were already on the verge of a crisis, and Kasarina wondered if the goddess was really testing them this time. Kyu then realized that they didn't have much time before the world ended if things went wrong. However, it was more painful for him to watch Sui suffering with the weight of the world on her shoulders. She was not a bad kid, and Kyu wanted to cure her. Just then, a strong gust of wind opened the window and surprised everyone in the room. Kyu was left stunned for a few seconds until he realized something. He recalled the things that the goddess had told him so far about the world trees and their jewels. Kyu quickly put on his farming gear and went to his fields. He reminded himself of the reason for all the traveling he had done so far. It was the only thing he could do. While Kasarina and the others were taking care of Sui, and Lily and Isu were hunting beasts, Kyu started farming once again. Afterward, Kyu finished what he was doing. At the same time, Lily and Isu returned with their finds. They brought many monster jewels and seeds. Lily reported that they got everything on the list. Kasarina was happy because they could make wonderful dishes with them. She then told everyone they would start cooking immediately and asked Kyu to get some devil carrots and killer plants. Kyu harvested what was needed, and when he got back inside, he was glad to see the others working together for one goal. With the new items, he thought they could finally wake up Sui. Kasarin then realized that Sui couldn't eat solid food yet, and decided to make something drinkable. She crushed some jackamelons while Kyu grated some devil carrots. She needed the carrots to make the drink tasty for Sui. She added some honey for extra nutrients. They mixed everything together and adjusted the taste. In the end, they made a smoothie. Kyu then went to Sui's room, and Mu reported that nothing had changed so far. They helped Sui sit up so she could drink the smoothie they made. Sui drank some of the smoothie and swallowed it easily. Kyu noticed that Sui was staring at the smoothie and asked if she wanted more. Minutes later, Kyu kept shouting Kasarina's name and appeared in the kitchen crying, saying that Sui had eaten all of the smoothie. The girls were happy about this good news. Kasarina said they had a good start and suggested making jelly with killer plant next. They cut the killer plant fruits and boiled them with chia seeds, sugar, and water. While the jelly cooled, they cut the monster to serve with it. They placed the monster cubes on top of the chilled killer plant jelly to finish the dessert. Kasarina said it would be easier for Sui to eat something familiar, and Kyu agreed. Kasarina then told Lily to smoke the Cerberus meat while Kyu delivered another meal to Sui. Isu helped with the Cerberus meat and Kyu fed Sui again. The girls set up the smoking area for the meat. Jack appeared to help with the fire, but he overdid it and the smoking area exploded. The Cerberus meat got burnt, but they found a way to fix it. Shortly after, Sui began eating on her own again and regained her ability to speak. Kyu and the girls rejoiced upon hearing Sui's voice. Sui smiled at them and Kasarina was relieved to see her recovering well. Lily also agreed, noting Sui's improved complexion. Kasarina then suggested using the nutritious smoked Cerberus meat that Lily had prepared for their next meal. The meat was low in fat and had a juicy, fragrant flavor. Kasarina asked Lily to fetch the smoked meat while she and Kyu prepared the accompanying ingredients. Kyu eagerly anticipated the cooking meat's aroma. Meanwhile, Lily was instructed to whip the egg whites until they were fully fluffy. With a deep breath, Lily swiftly whisked the egg whites until they formed stiff peaks. Kasarina checked the whipped egg whites and marveled at their perfect texture. It was the best meringue she had ever seen. She then added the egg yolks and butter, asking Lily to mix them together. They poured the mixture over the barley and baked it. The final dish was a fluffy cockatrice omuris. The new dish was given to Sui, who immediately enjoyed it. Kyu watched as she finished every bite, relieved that she ate it all. Sui then fell silent for a while and shyly asked for more food. Kyu was happy to see Sui returning to her usual self. Mu quickly ran to her master, whimpering. From then on, Sui's appetite gradually increased and she started feeling better. Soon she could go outside and play with the others again. She resumed riding Jack like in the old days and became more energetic, playing with Mu too. Kasarina and Lily were pleased to see Sui fully recovered. Kyu acknowledged everyone's help and formally thanked Kasarina for her assistance. Kasarina was glad to help, finding it a rewarding experience where she could experiment with new dishes and see Kyu able to continue his journey. While the adults happily chatted, Sui and the others played tag in the fields. Suddenly, cheerful Sui stopped running and stared blankly. Her eyes lost their sparkle and she reached out weakly to the others. Then her consciousness faded and with a small thud, Sui collapsed to the ground, catching the attention of Dora and Mu, who turned to see her fall. Kyu had cried out Sui's name when he saw the young Demon King unconscious again. Dora began to tear up, desperately calling for Sui to wake up and open her eyes. Her tears fell onto Sui's lips. Silence fell over everyone until the ground began to rumble and shake violently. A powerful earthquake gripped them. Nearby, a pillar of light suddenly appeared, leaving everyone bewildered. Kyu recognized the significance of the location. At the base of the pillar, an explosion occurred, and Sui started to shine and float upwards. She was being drawn towards the pillar of light. The area continued to glow brightly, its light spreading across the entire continent. Kyu and the others chased after Sui, but their pursuit was halted when thick roots suddenly emerged from the ground. They were all taken aback by the unexpected appearance of tree roots. Kyu then had a realization and turned to look at Sui, who was still floating. He couldn't believe that something he had planted had actually grown. Before them stood the World Tree, also known as the Sephiroth, glowing brilliantly. They all stood transfixed before the massive, shining World Tree of Life. At first, everyone was too astonished to speak. Lily admitted she didn't understand why she felt like crying when she looked at the tree. She was amazed to witness something so magnificent before her eyes. The other girls also found it astonishing and praised Kyu. However, their home had been uprooted in the process. Lily then asked Kyu if he had done something. Kyu confessed that he had pondered things when Sui fell into a coma. He had thought that Sui was weakening due to not receiving enough power from the world trees, so he came up with a plan to plant all 3 seeds, hoping it might help wake Sui up. Lily observed that the 3 trees had indeed intertwined with each other. Suddenly, Sui called out to Kyu. Kyu embraced her like a father and shed tears of relief that Sui was feeling better. Sui responded cheerfully, and everyone else was relieved to see a happy ending. Kasarina could see that they had finally resolved the problem this time. Kyu apologized for causing them to worry, but Kasarina understood, having witnessed something remarkable. She vowed to ensure that no more tears fell from the world trees, seeking to make amends for the trouble she had caused by cutting them down initially. Kyu and Lily cheered for Kasarina's determination. Lily hoped that Isu could also reconcile with her brother. Isu embarked on a journey to find her brother, leaving with Kasarina. Kyu and Lily assured them that they would always be friends and ready to help in times of need. They waved goodbye, leaving Kyu and Lily alone, just as they had been at the beginning. Kyu and Lily went to a nearby cliff for a serious talk. Lily shared her concerns about the world ending after seeing Sui's critical condition. During their conversation, she started thinking about what she wanted to say to Kyu. However, with Sui improving, Lily decided not to bring it up just yet. Kyu expressed his curiosity, which made Lily blush. She then admitted she had one wish. She initially found Kyu strange when they first met, but she was sincerely grateful they crossed paths. Lily thanked Kyu for choosing her as his partner. Embarrassed, Kyu confessed he felt the same. Coming from another world, he was happy to have met Lily. He expressed his intention to rely on her more in the future, and Lily agreed. Shortly after, Kyu and the others bid farewell to Mochi and Mina. Mina wished them well, and Kyu asked her to look after his fields and monsters. He also bid farewell to the monsters, including a small ruby among them. With Jack, Sui, Moo, and Vern, Kyu and Lily set off on their new journey. Just as they were deciding where to go next, something suddenly appeared before the group. The goddess finally showed up amidst confetti and party poppers. Irritated, Kyu demanded to know what the goddess was doing. The goddess became nervous and explained that staying silent through everything had been difficult for her too. She believed Kyu would take action. She then thanked Kyu for saving the world and Sui, reminding them to gather and plant the remaining world tree seeds. With that said, she looked forward to future collaborations with Kyu and disappeared, leaving Kyu pondering over what had just happened. Lily pointed out to Kyu that even the goddess had limitations. She thought the goddess had only appeared to express her feelings to Kyu. Kyu sighed, concluding that matters in chest were now settled. He asked for Moo's assistance. Moo transformed into her Bahamut form, and together they embarked on their new journey. Though the collection of the other seeds wasn't shown, this concludes the manga. We appreciate you reading and watching until the end.